Good evening, everyone. Seeing that we have a quorum, both for those that are here in person at the large group instruction room, as well as joining virtually on this evening of March 5th, 2025. I'd like to call to order the Wildwood School Building School Building Committee. And with that, a roll call, please.
Diane Allen.
Here.
Greg Bendel. Kate Bitzel. Glenn Brandt.
Here.
Kevin Kyra.
Yeah.
Michael Camosio.
Here.
Justin Couchet.
Here.
Marianne Galezzo.
Here.
Nicholas Golden.
Here.
Christine Holleran.
Here.
John Holloway. Dennis Kelly.
Here.
Paul Melorani.
Here.
Greg Minor. Christine Murray. Here. Judy O'Connell. Here. Christine Pendergast. Here. David Ragsdale.
Here.
Paul Ruggiero.
Here.
Stacy Scott.
Here.
Eric Schlegel.
Here.
Stephen Turner.
Here.
And myself, yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Item number 2 tonight is the approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve in the packet and distributed previously. The minutes for February 5th and February 13th, 2025, respectively. And so if there's no objection from members of the committee, if we can include those 2 both as part of the votes. Just pause if there's any discussion or suggestions for corrections on those minutes.
Just the only question, if I was not present at one, I would abstain from that one, but if we lump them together, then.
Okay. So is there a desire then to go separately? Yeah. Okay. Starting first with February 5th, looking for a motion of approval of the February 5th minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion second.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Vivian, if you would, thank you.
So Diane Allen.
Yes.
Glenn Brandt.
Yes.
Kevin Kyra.
Yes.
Michael Camosio.
Yes.
Justin Couchet.
Yes.
Marianne Galezzo.
Yes.
Nicholas Golden.
Abstain.
Christine Holleran.
Yes.
Dennis Kelly.
Yes.
Paul Melorani.
Yes.
Christine Murray. Christine. Judy O'Connell.
Yes.
Christine Pendergast.
Yes.
David Ragsdale.
Yes.
Paul Ruggiero.
Yes.
Stacy Scott.
Abstain.
Eric Schlegel.
Yeah.
Stephen Turner.
Abstain.
And myself, yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And still on item number 2, approval of minutes from the February 13th, 2025 meeting. Mr. Turner,
Second.
motion second. Any discussion?
Dr. Brand,
Yes.
I sent this email to Sarah earlier, but I just want to know, I was absent from that meeting, so I'll be abstaining. The minutes can be updated.
Okay. Thank you for that. Sarah, you there?
This is Michael Camosio.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Any other discussion? Good. Motion and second. Roll call, please.
Diane Allen.
Yes.
Glenn Brandt.
Yes.
Kevin Kyra.
Yes.
Michael Camosio, you'll abstain. Justin Couchet.
Yes.
Marianne Galezzo.
Yes.
Nick Golden.
Yes.
Christine Holleran.
Yes.
Dennis Kelly.
Yes.
Paul Melorani.
Yes.
Christine Murray. Abstain. Judy O'Connell.
Abstain.
Christine Pendergast.
Yes.
David Ragsdale.
Yes.
Paul Ruggiero.
Yes.
Stacy Scott.
Abstain.
Eric Schlegel.
Yeah.
Stephen Turner.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Item number 3, approval of invoices. Julie.
Good evening. We are presenting warrant article number 22A for SMMA's OPM basic services for schematic design in the amount of $3,750. And Paul Ruggiero with the recommendation from the Finance Working Group.
Thank you. The Finance Working Group recommends approval of warrant number 22A in the amount of $3,750.
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second, any discussion?
Do we know how much is remaining on your contract?
$0. This is the last invoice.
So we have motion second, any other comments? Okay, with that, roll call.
Diane Allen,
Yes.
Glenn Brand,
Yes.
Kevin Kyra,
Abstain.
Michael Pomosio,
Yes.
Justin Couche,
Yes.
Marianne Galezzo,
Yes.
Nick Golden,
Yes.
Christine Holleran,
Yes.
Dennis Kelly.
Yes.
Paul Malorani,
Yes.
Christine Murray. Judy O'Connell,
Yes.
Christine Pendergast.
Yes.
David Ragsdale,
Yes.
Paul Ruggiero,
Yes.
Stacy Scott,
Yes.
Eric Schlegel,
Yes.
Stephen Turner,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Next up, we have warrant article 22B for Doran Whittier's services, their architectural basic services for schematic design in the amount of $53,900. Next, we have Doran Whittier's designer amendment 3 for site survey in the amount of $445.50 for a total warrant article number 22B in the amount of 45,000.
50.
Sorry, thank you. $54,345.50. And Paul Ruggiero with the recommendation from the Finance Working Group.
Thank you. The Finance Working Group recommends approval of warrant number 22B in the amount of $54,345.50.
Second. We have a motion, we have a second, any discussion? Seeing, hearing none, roll call vote.
Diane Allen,
Yes.
Glenn Brandt,
Yes.
Kevin Kyra,
Yes.
Michael Pomosio,
Yes.
Justin Couche,
Yes.
Marianne Galezzo,
Yes.
Nicholas Golden,
Yes.
Christine Holleran,
Yes.
Dennis Kelly,
Yes.
Paul Malorani,
Yes.
Christine Murray. Yes. Judy O'Connell,
Yes.
Christine Pendergast.
Yes.
David Ragsdale,
Yes.
Paul Ruggiero,
Yes.
Stacy Scott,
Sorry, tech issues. Yes.
Eric Schlegel,
Yes.
Stephen Turner,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Great, thank you, everyone. Moving on to item number 4, construction manager at risk team introductions. Our team and this project team this evening really, well, it started before tonight, officially expands, and for the members of this community, this committee, and all other stakeholders, I think should feel certainly well supported as we continue on in this project with an additional facet of the project moving forward. So it's a pleasure to introduce Dave Fontaine Jr., who's here from Fontaine Brothers, company that was recently approved by this committee to serve as this project's construction manager at risk, or CM at risk that we refer to. So welcome, and I'll let you do introductions if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. Again, my name is David Fontaine. Very nice to meet many of you in person that we didn't get the chance to meet at the interviews. And to see some of you again, we really appreciate your confidence in Fontaine and us here tonight. I'll give just a little brief background on Fontaine Brothers kind of as a company, and then turn it over to Rob Day, who will be our lead throughout the project. Fontaine was started in 1933. We are a 4th generation family-owned business. And we focused almost exclusively on public school construction here in Massachusetts. We've delivered as a company over 130 public schools, many out in this area, and close by as well. And we have, many teams that are focused on public schools and kind of gauge our availability and interest in projects based on the availability of teams that have worked together that have delivered similar projects successfully. We're proud to have a great team that's dedicated to this project led by Rob, as we needed to. Thank you. If you go to the next slide, just want to highlight the breadth of kind of the services and support behind us. Fontaine is a firm that does over $300 million a year in revenue here in Massachusetts. And we're supported by a large staff, on site, but also at the office that brings that kind of depth of resources here. So you can see the team led by Rob has worked together on similar projects, is working together currently. Has also worked successfully with both Dora Whittier and Sims Maney, in roles as architects and OPM. So it brings a lot of continuity from our team to the consulting team already in place. Next slide, you'll see some of these similar projects that our team has worked on, including the Northbridge Elementary School with Dora Whittier and Sims, the Shaw Elementary School in Millbury, and the Tingsboro Middle School in the Neck of the Woods that Rob and his team are working on currently. The next slide, I just want to kind of highlight one of the things we spoke about in the interview that makes us a little bit unique. We're proud of is that we continue to operate very effectively, efficiently, and broadly in both the construction management market, delivering nothing for this project, as well as the hard bid lump sum general contracting method. We feel that that brings a mix of the sophistication with the CM method, the advantages that we'll realize here, such as the base procurement, accelerated schedule approach, a lot of experience supporting builds with towns, and also that kind of hard bid mentality with the cost control, the effectiveness, self-perform capabilities. So really excited to be here, excited to be part of the team. It's clear to us that this committee has spent, a lot of time on this project. It's, dove in deep in details. We saw that in the interview process. So really, we're honored to be here and appreciate your confidence in the team. I'll have Rob speak a little bit more.
Thanks, David. Go to the next slide, please. So to echo Dave, thank you for selecting us, and we really look forward to working with you guys, and again, continuing with Julie and SMMA and the Dora Whittier team all together. So again, I'm the project executive on the job. I'll be leading the team from today through to final completion. And currently, we are also working very heavily with Chelsea's not this tonight, but she's our vice president of pre-construction. Oh, she's on. Okay, great, she's on. Hi, Chelsea. So they're currently working through the SD estimate, and the goal there is to have that wrapped up through mid-March. And we'll be getting together to do a reconciliation, so that come the end of the month. We're coming back to you guys with a financial status update, and time for that, it's the 31st community update meeting as well. And then we're also stacked across the board, as Dave mentioned, there's a lot of support roles that are going to come on in different capacities, different parts of the project. Right now, it's obviously geared towards the pre-con effort and then helping get the vote passed in September. So you'll start seeing some more of these faces as we move into construction. But yeah, we're moving full ahead with the estimate and working towards the MSBA deliverable, which is the next slide. So that goes in the end of April. And again, the big exercise right now is that SD estimate and looking at how we're doing with the budget. And we're going to have some good news on that deliverable.
Let the cat out of the bag early.
Yeah, I know. Careful what you say.
You guys have, as a committee, have also made some pretty good decisions for cost, value and cost add. So, or not cost add, but next slide, please. So some things that we're usually focused on during this phase, like where can we find value engineering? Where can we find value to bring to the project that may not be necessarily just dollars, but a better system or a better way of doing things that may either save money or just be a higher quality product. And we've been able successfully in the last couple of jobs to find some significant savings in site and the envelope and your MVP systems. We know you guys have made a lot of decisions already with regards to the envelope and cost savings efforts there. And you've also made decisions looking at the past meetings with your HVAC system, and definitely like what you guys have selected. It's a good decision. It doesn't mean we're going to leave those leaves unturned though. We can still go through the document and try to figure out where we can add additional value and potentially come to you guys with some decisions for options. So we'll be doing that as we look at the estimate. It's not just maybe what's in the drawing, but maybe what isn't there that we could change or do better. Next slide. So to highlight Dave's position as school builders, we're very used to being on an occupied campus, shared campus. We build schools all the time, as Dave mentioned, over 100 in the state. And we're sensitive to not just the impact that it has on the community, the abutters, but then the academics and the impact of the building right next door. So as we were putting a proposal together, we really wanted to come up with plans that cause as minimal impact as we could. It's construction, it's going to be a big building, it's going to be a lot of process, but we want to make sure that we're buying your guys' confidence as being your CM and pre-planning and coming up with an approach that keeps the kids safe and also keeps the impact down to the abutters and to the school. One of the other things to highlight is what we came up with keeps all of the parking and the traffic patterns at the North Intermediate School unimpacted throughout the construction process, so the drop off, the pickup will remain the same, the parking's gonna remain the same, and we'll be figuring out ways to try to keep the traffic congestion down. So that's our piece on for tonight, for me, so I'll turn it over to Mark.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm Mark Abdella. I'm the Vice President of Construction Management here for Fontaine. I support all of our CM projects. A bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. I sort of, Dave Senior always jokes like, what is it I pay you to do again? And I support our projects in lots of different ways. I'm involved in staff development, recruitment and retention. I'm a second set of eyes and ears for Dave on all of our CM school projects. I've been doing MSBA work for the better part of 20 years. All, obviously school related. The two big areas that you will most immediately see me here in Wilmington. One is I've already plugged in with the PR subcommittee at several meetings since we've been selected. And I tend to be the face and the voice of the company when it comes to getting out vote support, public information. Historically, the construction manager is not typically brought on board at this part of the process. If you look back kind of globally since MSBA started 20 years ago. But we have had some very good success, specifically very good success with Jordan Whittier. And so I'll be plugging in, bringing some thoughts, adding some ideas to what is already really, the PR subcommittee is doing a great job. It's very well organized. There's a list of very specific ideas and tasks that are already in motion, and I'm just trying to help add some thought and energy to that. If you go ahead and click a couple through, let's go right past all that. We don't need to get into that nitty gritty. And again, some ideas for that one more time. The other place that I show up is in student engagement. I actually started my career in the public school side of education and moved into construction about 20 years ago. Very familiar, Diane, working with your peers and Glenn, your peers, to think about how do we make this opportunity of building a new school interesting and exciting for the students. The community at North is going to see this. They're going to live it. They're going to breathe it. The rest of the student body and their families and the staff, we're going to have to get creative. But this is a project, as we well know, for more than just the folks on the North site. And that's not unfamiliar to us. Many communities around the state are in the process or have combined multiple buildings into one. And whether it is elementary, middle, or high school, we've got lots of cool ideas of engaging the faculty, engaging the parents, engaging the students, and really making this something that we start to build culture, build excitement, sort of shared sense of ownership throughout the course of the project. So I've been looking forward to doing it. And now just kind of an example where we will take the construction process, sit with school leaders and map curriculum ideas across the various activities. And we get very, specific and excited. Bring the OPM and the architect in. We do this all the time. If there's any questions, all three of us, we'd love, to answer anything. We kind of heard the feedback from the night where we were recommended and voted upon. So we've listened to that. The other videos being posted have been helpful. We've been mining that for other ideas. So we're very excited to bring a good foot forward. Nick, you look like you had a question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the kind of community awareness with regard to the vote. What you guys can do for that. I know you didn't want to get into the nitty gritty, but what are the kind of things that you have done in the past before a vote? And you're early in the process. It's not normally where you're involved, but do you have any preliminary kind of specific?
Yeah, it was funny. I know a couple other firms, both on this project and some other projects recently, have hired PR firms. And I challenge any of them to MSBA Jeopardy on any night at 7 o'clock. Feel pretty comfortable in this space. So we've had great luck leveraging existing social media pages in communities and using the folks that know your community to identify those pages and pump out clear and consistent information that can then just ripple out into the community. So I'd say that's step number one. The timing of your vote is really great because we will have spring and the end of the summer and the start of the school year for a captive audience of folks that are on the sidelines of soccer, flag football, basketball, anything that's happening those late summer, early fall time. So those parents, grandparents, those folks gather and they're a pretty captive audience in situations like that. Fun on the Fourth, we're all geared up to do that. I mean, I'm learning about those specific local things. And then each community is kind of, is unique and different. It's like figuring out who's already doing something and has those networks and leveraging those networks with clear and consistent information.
I'll tell you, in this day and age, you can never never post enough, right? So that
Right.
sounds like a great idea. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Guys.
Other questions?
Are we gonna get to hear what you teased us about?
Depends. Not tonight, but wait until we can, I think.
Yeah, I'll say, just in regards to the budgeting process, right, like we've already taken all the information, right, it's out to local subcontractors, suppliers, that are working with us actively on local projects, it's actually out in the marketplace to get current pricing. And, we anticipate that we'll get on each package of work somewhere between 2 and 4 actual quotes back for the work, and because we do this type of work repeatedly again and again, we'll get some contractor engagement even at the service stage, right? So that's important that we'll get kind of today's pricing. And we're also managing, through projects that are, in advanced stages, that are early stages. So we're seeing those material trends, we're seeing the impacts of things that are going on, like material price increases, the tariffs and all those different things. We'll factor that into kind of today's pricing. Which we're seeing right now in the market is relatively advantageous. The Boston market for private development is slower than it's been in some time because of interest rates and some other factors that have kind of created a little bit of a slowdown there, which is good for today's pricing. And then we'll work with your team and the consultants to kind of factor in what we factor on that for escalation and for the upcoming. And our goal is to put forward an estimate that is, obviously the most economical and also the most responsible, right? Because this is really the number that's setting what we're going to go out and ask for funding for. That we need to have confidence that we're obviously not going to receive, right? We can't put something forward that the project can't be delivered for. But we're also, we'll all personally be involved in that route. We're like our executives will work to make sure that we're putting forward an estimate that is not overly conservative, right? Because then, that drives up the anticipated cost and people are hesitant to invest, when the project doesn't move forward because there's too much risk avoidance, right? And that's also a negative outcome. So we're working very actively now. We know how important this estimate is to be accurate, but also to represent if there are potential cost savings capturing those for the work we get done with the decisions that have been made.
Congratulations. You guys performed really well in the interviews. I sat through all the interviews. I just want to say that, moving forward, we're not building this project in a vacuum. There's a lot of things going on in town. We potentially have a fire substation coming down the pipe. We have potentially our share of possibly a new vocational school. And the voters are cognizant of all of this stuff coming down. So I heard you say economical. That's a great word for me. Value engineering and being able to cut costs any way we can in this project is going to be huge to take this across the finish line. This is not Lexington. This is not Arlington. Wilmington's a different kind of animal when it comes to a project of this size. And I think it's going to take all hands on deck to really move this over line.
We appreciate that. We understand that. And that's, a lot of our work is in the central and western part of the state as well. And with those projects in those counties, every project, is a gigantic investment, generally the largest project that's been done in those types of towns. So like Northbridge, for example, working with North Whittier, we were part of the pre-build campaign with them. And, myself, Rob, at the senior centers, at town halls, at listening. So we hear those questions, those concerns. Which are valid, right? Like you have seniors that are on fixed income, you have people that are on tight budgets that want to know that the investment's being managed well, it's being stewarded well, and that it's being vetted well. So that's our market is this public school market, and we take our and supporting that very seriously. To your point, and we can help to compile accurate information. It's important that we help to communicate the economic impact within the town. Right, the availability of work hours for residents, the way that things are being reinvested during the course of the project as well. So in terms of vote support, it's messaging to, there's communities, students that obviously could go to the town, there's families, but there's also people in town that, you know, can be engaged with the process, can learn from it, so touching all those boxes.
Diane, I think you have a question?
Yes, I do. Well, first of all, I'd also like to echo what Paul Malorani just said. And I'd like to add, there is a very, very large population of seniors in this town. And to be perfectly honest with you, they are struggling right now, holding on to their homes as we do not have senior housing available. That's going to play a big role in pricing this project out. No one wants to see their taxes raised. And I just wanted you to know that, you know, we had an open house not too long ago, and I couldn't believe the amount that showed up. But the senior population is very, very active in this town, and they have to really be convinced about this project to vote on it and to see that it's, we've really put in just the necessities. It isn't a lot of fluff. My second part to my statement is I saw all those schools that you have been involved in. Is there, or would you know, what would you say is the average percentage of reimbursement from MSBA? Or is it so, you know, is it all over the place? Do you have any idea on something like that?
The reimbursement rate, to the second question, the reimbursement rate is calculated specifically for each project in each town, dependent on MSBA driven factors. I believe there's a formula that's related to typical household income and such like that. So I don't know what the average would be between all those, if it's project specific. Certainly as part of, you know, this process and putting together the vote, you know, information, the average tax impact that we calculated specifically in custom to this project. But it would be hard to say an average because it does vary widely community to community with the MSBA formula.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that answer. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Judy, did you have a question? Right.
I think it's basically been covered, but I was just gonna piggyback on what Paul had indicated, and obviously not putting the cart before the horse, this is one project, but the town manager has been very clear about sharing what he believes to be the, you know, his vision for up through 2055. So there could be future build endeavors that the town needs to undertake, i.e. a school for another side, and I understand we haven't even gotten through this, but this is going to be kind of all eyes on this specific project, but it's also going to be a strong indicator of future development for the town. And we have to come up with a total school solution. Plant that seed with you. I think Diane Allen's comments are well placed. You know, back to some of the social media and mobilizing the vote, is that, you know, obviously promoting factual information and making sure it's consistent and relevant. In my, you know, to make sure that we're, you know, getting that information out. We may not have people that are supportive of the project, and we may never have them, but how do we stay strong, composed, and factual throughout that process, even when we have people that may be working against the project? We have, it's a very constricted site. The abutter piece is going to be paramount. I know it's paramount with every project, but as you can see, it's going to be like threading a needle to put that school in that specific spot, which has been open space for a considerable amount of time. And now it's going, the landscape there is going to drastically change. So I know these are things that you've already been exposed to and have years of experience, but I believe that it bears repeating. So public engagement, how to be factual and try and align ourselves with the abutters every step of the way will bode goodwill, and it will also be a benchmark as to what future votes we'll need to take as a community within the next 25, 30 years, that we're being measured every step of the way as to what residents will be tolerant for future endeavors. So this is a part to a bigger story, and I think it's all just being written now. So I just thought that that was relevant to mention right on day one.
we're gonna need all your brilliance in all of these categories. And, you know, back to, you know, it's gonna be interesting for this committee. Some people have worked on other projects before. But what's the marriage between an OPM, a designer, and then, you know, a construction firm like yourself? Like, how do you potentially have collegiality where you're saying, well, maybe you don't need this hallway that's big, maybe you don't need, I mean, that, we're gonna be looking for that as a community, for you to have the professional conversations in the room to say, maybe you don't need something of this scope and size, and we'd like to consider you reducing that. And have everybody be professional and understand that you can have that constructive feedback, and we can still get a great product, but we can get a cost savings achieved in that process. So we're gonna be looking for that, you know, authentic conversation that's for the betterment of the town financially, and yet we're still giving the best product to our students and staff.
Thank you. Yeah, we definitely hear those concerns. We echo those in terms of, you know, what we see as important for the success of the project as well. You know, in regards to neighbors and abutters, you know, almost all of our projects that are, you know, schools are in, you know, neighborhoods, not always as tight as this one, certainly. On this project team specifically that we selected for this, Rob, Alex, Chad have worked in neighborhoods very similar to this, and actually tighter, closer proximity to the existing school, closer proximity to the abutters. If you want to speak a little bit about your kind of your approach, butters, or, you know,
So Northbridge, to roll with the relevant experience with the team this year. Yes, like understood North Intermediate School space, and it was an open landscape. Northbridge, it was the opposite, where they had a wooden buffer, like they had privacy in their backyards, and we had a clear cut right to the property line. So that brought a whole different element, where not only were you like changing the landscape, but you're people who have pools that are used to being up in the bays who now have a building that's overlooking that type of concern. So what we did is we went on foot, and I hand delivered, you know, before the job started, like, here's the contact, here's who you get in touch with, here's what the chain of communication is going to be if you have questions, if you have concerns. And there was a lot of questions and there was a lot of concerns that we then communicated back to this group, would be this group, and we discussed to say, okay, you know, this is what's been brought up. How do we want to address it? What's the best solution for this abutter? Does that impact some of the other abutters as well? Do we need to be engaging more people? So the best you can do is just have like a clear line with them and let them know they're heard. I think the worst thing to do is when people feel like they're not heard and they don't know who to talk to, or they have these concerns, they're not getting the type of attention that they think that they deserve. So getting out in front of it and making sure that we're clear with our communication and who they touch base with, and that we understand what we're doing, I think is very important. Ultimately, the school's gonna, you know, get passed, it's gonna get built there, and we have to be sensitive to that, but then we also have to be realistic and factual to your point, right? So I think sometimes it's walking that line of understanding, but we still have a job to do, you know, so.
And I think that, you know, meeting with the abutters, or if there are, you know, folks or groups that they've organized like really often, including, you know, pre-vote, is important. It's something that we, you know, that we willing to do, think is a good idea, because how they feel about the project is going to permeate out to other important groups. And certainly they want to know, you know, answers, speak to us, you know, blackout hours, traffic, where you're going to park trucks, like all those things. We think, you know, to Rob's point, having a direct line to us in different forms, however, is best in each specific town and under the, you know, guidance of each owner, the earlier, the better, because we can help build some rapport instead of building. You know, if people don't have access to direct answers, right, like they might assume something that's worse than it really could be or less controlled. So the earlier the better. I think too, another one of your points and questions. We look at it like the OPM, the designer, and the CM all have a responsibility, right, to deliver the most economical, most efficient, and, you know, the most utilitarian building for use in the school. Often we might have, you know, experience from ongoing jobs and you know, work doing video in the past, but with a lot of other designers too, where we see ways to do things that are, you know, equally as good, but maybe they're cost efficient, right? And we're not afraid to bring those things up. We have a great, you know, long-standing relationship with Dorn Whittier. And I think that that's a strength that we bring, is that we have that rapport where we can bring anything to the table, and I don't think it's seen as, you know, oh, why you bring that up, or saying that we shouldn't do that. Like it's a conversation. And we'll absolutely do that, as Rob said, you know, going through site, going through, you know, how the consultants are looking at, you know, the structure of the building, the systems of the building, like we'll price, you know, what's on the documents, as well as bring value management solutions that can bring real value, right? If you can receive the same end product or a better end product for less value, that's a win for everyone.
Thank you. And I believe that you would, it's more just, all of this is just building public trust for all of us. So, thank you.
Dennis, I think you had a question then, Stephen.
Yeah, again, like everyone else, welcome aboard. Thrilled to have you guys here. In some previous meetings, I might have been a little vocal about the types of materials you move on the outside of the building. I don't know if you guys remember. I don't, it's hard to remember. But, and I said, when we get inside, it's all about the student's experience. I can't speak to education, nor will I try, but I can speak to maintenance, and some of my concerns will be, you know, where things are to be maintained. I hope their expertise comes in there. I spoke vaguely before the meeting about the lighting package. There's got to be that wow factor for the children, but there's always got to be that, can it be maintained? Can it be replaced? Can it be repaired as well? And I hope you guys bring that to it, because sometimes, I don't mean this against Durham Whittier or anyone else, sometimes designers have a different view, and it's cool, but how do you maintain it? What can you do? What's the future going to bring for that? So I hope to see some exciting information there, as well as with the HVAC stuff. I like to, when you talk about value engineering and value management, as you look at these things, because again, I won't speak towards teachers because they're in the room every day, but what can you bring? What's in the room that could be a savings or a change and make it lower maintenance to, the schools become 7 days a week, 365 days a year to use. It's hard to do overall cleanings and maintenance. So the different types of materials have to have longevity to them and last, but quickly be cleaned so that the school can get the most benefit out of the building.
Absolutely appreciate that, but I think the good thing that you do free time is you know, with ourselves and Rob also, we have an in-house and group that focuses on those systems and also supports them during turnover, after turnover, and then well beyond the warranty period and stuff like that. So we will always be able to reach out to us with the year or respond. So
great.
We engage in that as, you know, we feel it's best practice and to continue our relationship. So we'll be there with you.
It's my responsibility. This is much to whenever I retire 5, 7, 10 years from now to the next person, that it's something that can be managed and maintained for the future for everyone. So
I think you have to add a couple more years.
10, 12, 15.
Spoiler alert, though, before that Dennis was over the moon with the flooring being proposed.
I was.
When you get there in the picture to see that.
Low maintenance, no stripping and waxing.
Right.
Fantastic.
Spoiler.
Two completely different points. One, I appreciate all your expertise, and one of the things I would hope for with the abutters is to be really careful with terms of industry versus terms of public communication. And there was a community forum with the abutters, and there was a discussion about groundwater mitigation, which conceptually a lot of us can kind of get, but fundamentally what that actually means. The water now falls and it goes wherever. It's going to be a lot. It's not necessarily going to be perfect, but it'll be a much more controlled thing. I live behind the abutters to the Market Basket Plaza. The road I'm on used to flood 10 times a year. Since they redid that plaza, it has flooded in the last 15 years less than 2 or 3 times. So that's the practical sort of impact of groundwater mitigation, that if you've got a flat property with those, it runs off those fields into their yards. You can have a real positive impact to the household value, not just that it's no, or there will be an impact, but there's places where it can be managed, and helping them understand in practical terms, without terms of art, I think is really important. And then the other side is not just assuring people that we're doing the right thing with the money, which is obviously critical, but this is an opportunity to bring our educational facilities from the 1950s to 2025, 2030. There is going to be the opportunity to do better things for our students, better education. At the end of the day, the fundamental thing about the building is what the children gain from it, the experience of the teachers and staff that work there. And so focusing on the positive of the educational experience can draw more positive vote
as opposed to countering negative sentiments, which obviously is supremely important. You guys are absolutely right about making sure people are comfortable that we're doing the right thing. But the other side of that is not just doing the right thing, but making it a much, much better experience for the children. They learn better, they learn more, and they have a better positive experience with it for many decades that follow construction. So being positive about the communication is so important as well.
Thank you, sir. David?
Ken, welcome aboard. You mentioned it again at the very beginning of your comments, but I am really glad that you still have that foot in the general contracting world. Because I think that's not to repeat your own talking points, but I think they're true. That it's like there, if you can't control costs, then your overhead and your profit disappear. And so you have not just the incentive, but you need to do that to be successful in that realm. And so I think that helps sort of the mindset for just working in all of these types of projects. And I'm really looking forward to just getting the benefit of your experience with school construction projects in Massachusetts, because while every project is different and every town is different, they're also all the same in some important ways. That's just, things are going to be the same in school construction. Every town is going to have similar concerns about the cost of the project and the impact to their taxes and the benefits that ultimately the students are going to get, and considering that they're going to get value and not just about cost, but about the value they gain from the project. And so I'm really looking forward to also benefiting from the experience that you have in other communities who will have similar concerns that have been raised in our community, and that we can hopefully have some similar success, solutions and similar success.
Thank you, appreciate that. I think to both your point, right, like it's important to share broadly the positive impacts in ways that are tangible and indisputable, right? With not just the daylighting, IAQ in the building and stuff like that, ways that impact our positively. And balance that with making sure people see it's economical and make it sort of top bill. It's perfect. That's all. Julie.
As a member of the committee that helped to bring Fontaine on board, I just wanted to say that I had the benefit of working with Rob Day and the rest of the team, which would be Chad Leclerc, and Joe Nell and Alex Omar. So they were on a project with me for over 2.5 years, and we had a fantastic project. I was also here at the tail end when I came over to SMMA of the Northbridge project, so I was able to finish that project with them as well, and Doran Whittier. I wanted to touch a little bit on something that Diane and Judy kind of brought up, which would be, getting out the vote and, although you didn't mention it specifically, but when we will know what the town share is. And so I just wanted to kind of update you all that right now Doran Whittier has provided the documents to Fontaine, which is what we were discussing. They are going through them, and as Junior had mentioned that we were, did I skip a page?
No.
Oh, there they are. Voila. And so they've reached out to subcontractors and they're getting competitive pricing so that they can come back. We are going to meet and we do what we call a cost reconciliation. So the design teams, estimator, and and Fontaine's group, we all come together and we sit, and it's literally 8 hours of going through every single line item to make sure that we are on the same page. At the end, the estimator of record, which is from Doran Whittier, then put together a final estimate. We take that and we combine that with all of the documents and we submit that to the MSBA. As part of that package, we do what we call the project scope and budget agreement, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is the MSBA's budget. So we are going to put this whole package together. We're going to submit it to the MSBA. We go back and forth and what about this? What about that? We cross things out until we get to the final number. So that final number we will have, and we will be presenting that with the team to the MSBA on June 25th. So on June 25th, we are going to get the blessing from the MSBA. We will know exactly what your reimbursement rate is. And on that afternoon, June 25th, we will know what the town's share will be, which coincidentally, Fun on the 4th is 2 days later, right? So we will be able to provide that information at Fun on the 4th to the entire community so that they will know what their share is. And the goal is that we will provide a tax calculator so that people can go in, find their assessed value of their home, and they know what their tax increase will look like. And so that is the goal for us to get to the community right after we meet with the MSBA. So just want to give you an update on a timeline schedule so that anyone who's watching remote or watches this, later on, I know these questions come up. We're going to have a community forum on March 31st, and we're probably going to hear that question about, 4 or 5 times. Well, how much are my taxes going to go up? I've now publicly told you on June 25th, once we get the blessing from the MSBA, the entire community will be able to know.
Does that mean the data we already have, the estimates that we already have that were a little preliminary or should be not mentioned or used because they would be stale?
So the original estimate that we did, every time we have a new iteration that is submitted to the MSBA, we do a new estimate. So we will continue to do estimates, and if you think about it like this, it's gonna go like this. And we're gonna refine it until we get to that point. And when we get to that point, at the end of this estimate here, this is what we're gonna go to the town vote for, right? But we're gonna continue to refine that through DD, through CD. We're gonna continue to do estimates to make sure we're locked in and that something doesn't happen, a tariff, and then it skyrockets. And then when we go out to bid, and if the bids are over, we need to know why. And the goal is to make sure that we don't get there, that we're already ahead of the game. We already know, what potentially is an issue.
I guess my question is just, if I'm at Market Basket and someone says, you're on the school building committee, what is the current projection? Can I give them the data we still have, or should I wait till we have the new estimate?
Yep, you can give that data.
Plus the amount we've given has never been a finite and exact. It's always been a range to this point. So the range would still hopefully hold true if we've done our work and homework correctly, and they'll still fall within that range. And if not, I'm sure they'll come up with creative solutions to get us there.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and we've taken a preliminary look through the available estimates and data that have been done so far. We've indexed it against similar projects that we've done and stuff like that. And we feel that it's a good range as it's been shown. What we're doing now is going through and doing a detailed line by line, that'll be like our own numbers, but in the Market Basket question, I feel confident using the information presented so far.
Thank you.
Well, just so we're clear, what's the current estimate range of this project?
Current estimate for construction was 100. For construction, yeah.
It was in one of the previous slide iterations.
135 million.
135. Okay,
Yep.
that's what I thought. And just so everybody's clear.
For construction.
Yeah, for construction.
Yeah.
And then you add in all the other costs for design, OPM, and
Yeah.
Total.
Okay, well, thank you for that. You move us on in the agenda, but just to point out, the folks from Fontaine joined the leadership working group. We meet weekly, and that continues with the town manager's office as well as my office and our consultants, and they're now part of that team and those meetings. So we look forward to continuing with your partnership too through those meetings as well. Item number 5 tonight is a design update. Lots of good information to share.
best part of the day.
Hi, everyone. So it's been a month since we've been here, able to give an update, and we've been very busy. On the table here, I'm not sure who the lucky winner is that will take these home with them. I'm looking at Dennis likely, but but this is what everyone has been referring to. These are the drawings and the specifications that were put together that the estimates are going to be based on. Lots of pages here, lots of information that has been developed and put into the drawings and specs for estimating. So that's been happening. That went out a couple weeks ago, and a couple weeks, it feels like a couple weeks, it's like a week ago. But so our next meeting will be coming back with some exciting information for you on that. And then in the interim, we've also been developing some of the graphics, updating information based on different meetings that we've had, whether we met with, from comments from the abutters, comments when we met with public safety, and then the different groups, the district team, and, continuing to update and refine the information. So there's a lot of slides. I'm sure you all saw that in your packet, but we're going to go through them as quickly as we can. But just wanted to make sure we're sharing the information. Part of it is because a lot of this information is going to be used to update the staff, where Dr. Brandon and his team are putting together some information to share back to the district team. And so, you know, we want to make sure that you all get to see all of this stuff as well first. So this is the site plan, a little bit more refined. You know, we've talked about the playground moving for the upper grades so that they don't have to cross the road when they want to access the playground. We've worked to improve the buffers around the site. So as you can see here, you know, before we had the driveway and it was very close to the property line. So we've gone through and confirmed that we have moved and we are meeting all of the requirements of the town to make sure that we are maintaining all of the side property line buffers, the front line buffers, all around the site. We've also located, you'll see these two spots here in red for where the security access points are that prevent vehicles from taking that access road around the building, which is really intended for emergency vehicles. And a large part of that also is to maintain the security where the playgrounds are behind the building, and also where the bus loop is. Buses would come in, they'd be able to use the turnaround and come back around. So these are all things that we've covered, but just continuing to improve based on all of the feedback that we've been hearing. So.
Can I ask a quick question? So the property line buffer that's right underneath the upper 2B on the west side of the lot, where it's 10 feet 5 inches.
Mm-hmm.
So is that to a fence line, or so it looks, is the white a fence line and then the fence line jogs in to be on top of the berm and the property line is further away?
So that's the property line.
The white is.
Right.
And why is there a green on the outside of the property line?
So.
Okay, just what?
So that has to do with when we started the project because of the wetlands. So when we started the project, we had the wetlands with the buffers, but then the buffer got to go away because we realized that it was a non-jurisdictional wetland, meaning that it didn't have a buffer associated with it. So it's kind of always been on the plan, but that white line marks the actual property line.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So after you're saying that, because I was thinking it was all the way up the green, is there a way to swing that playground into the courtyard a little so that you can get a little more on the buffer on that road? Because it looks like that's what's pushing the road out further. Because I know that was one of the neighbors that really spoke up. I like what you did with the turnaround. I like what you did with that front neighbor with the extra trees, because those are things that the abutters brought up. But is there a way to swing that into the courtyard at all?
So we can look at that as we move forward. The one thing is with talking with public safety, they want to be able to gain access into the courtyard space. And so because of that, we've been very mindful about what we are placing in that path, you know, that enters into the courtyard. And so, you know, we'd have to just get creative with the play structure placement to see if we could extend it. You know, at one point we did look at potentially putting some playground equipment, you know, but then we moved the bus turnaround there. So we've been playing with it. But the other piece is these are the younger kids as well. So trying to keep them as close to the building as possible. But it is also a large number of kids that will be on the playground at the same time. So we don't want to make it so crowded. But, you know, we'll continue to look at it as we're moving.
And again, a lot of traffic won't go back there on a daily basis. I mean,
There will be no traffic on that portion.
So that cuts back a lot. I was just thinking if you could pick up a couple feet, that may be the biggest thing to somebody, but no, that's it.
I mean, to tell you the truth, you know, the buses come up to this point and then they would turn around, or a vehicle. The point from where that bus turnaround is down to where the gate is at the bottom, on the south side here, no vehicles would actually travel that unless it was an emergency vehicle. So
maybe we just paint it green.
This has to do with the layout, just to show the queuing.
I have a quick question.
Oh, sure.
Are we losing both baseball fields? Because I thought the last rendition had a baseball field as part of it. We have a big
Uh,
diamond, we have a big diamond and a Little League diamond on the field now. So just curious.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, we are in this plan not carrying the baseball field. It just has to do with the size of the building footprint and then also the required parking. And then fitting the playground areas on the site as well. So right now, we have not been able to fit the baseball diamond on the site.
So a Little League, even a Little League doesn't fit in that upper corner. It's not large enough
In this area.
in the top corner.
You're here, we can see where you're pointing, so.
Are you talking about here?
Yeah, right there. Yes, yes.
I don't believe, we did not look at putting a Little League field on the site because there wasn't one, and in all of our site working group meetings, that was never mentioned, so it wasn't under consideration. I mean, obviously the larger baseball field was something that we knew we'd be losing with this plan, if we went with a pre-K 5.
Well, if I could cut in real quick, just so the committee knows, I've had preliminary conversations with Paul Looney and Jamie McGaldy about this particular issue, the loss of the full-size soccer field and the full-size baseball field. And so it appears as though we were going to be able to replicate those at the Textron fields. One of the plans that appears to be viable that I've told Jamie we need to focus on is the one that puts a full-size soccer field and a full-size baseball diamond at the Textron fields that would replicate this. So just for folks, we're cognizant of it, and those fields would be in play. Hopefully,
There is a field there now, Eric. There's a baseball field there now that is sometimes utilized. So it's not an addition to, it's just going to be repaired, I guess, so that it's a big diamond. So we're losing 2 fields. We're not moving it to the Textron. There's already a field there. So you're really not gaining one. There's already a baseball, softball type of field there.
No, we didn't. Did we just secure that agreement? We haven't been using that.
Yeah, I mean, so that hasn't been in our inventory, and the full-size soccer field that will be going there will be brand new. So that's not appropriate at the current location for varsity use. Full-size field. So the goal would be to upgrade it so that it would be used as a full-size field.
Right. I'm just letting you know that there is a diamond there, whether it's being used or utilized or not. There is a diamond there. Right.
Sure.
Okay.
Just to add to that, those meetings with Jamie and the design team with that field that's happening within the next week and a half. So these are real-time conversations that are happening now about the development of that field, like further development and enhancement.
Stephen, you have a question? Just a quick suggestion again for the abutters benefit. We've got the lines to the pavement, having the lines distances to the building as well, because the building is set back, give or take 70 to 100 feet from the property lines. So I think that's pretty important for them to understand in terms of how far, and I made those numbers up, not to make them, those are from far memory, so don't quote me on this number. The building is not anywhere near 10 to 35 feet from the property lines. It's much, much further back. And I think for any future drawings you have that are for community consumption, having those distances, at least in a few spots, will help people understand, yes, it's a good sized building, but it is centered fairly well in space through the design work to date. So I think that's important as well.
No, I like that suggestion very much because it's hard to see conceptually in the drawings that that's a 2-lane pathway around the building, and to understand that how wide that is and how wide the playground is and what it adds up to the distance away from the abutters.
I think in a previous meeting, Lee mentioned that when we meet with abutters, that he would be able to show them what is the school going to look like from their property. And I think that is an intent for future abutter meetings.
And if I remember correctly, in the back, they were talking about that's a berm on that property line, so that actually puts the trees and everything higher to help block some of what's there and buffer the noise. So that, I forgot about that, it's not a level straight across.
All right.
And
Yes.
Stephen did say 100 feet.
From this image, it's hard to see like where a berm is and where it is not, and once they start doing the 3D renderings, it'll be a lot easier for people to see.
And just a quick question about that soccer field that's there now. How big is that in contrast with what's there now?
So the soccer field that we're showing is a U8 field, and that was after meeting with, again, the site, like we went with, Jamie from DPW, and then we also met with, the athletic director to confirm what we are able to fit and what they needed.
Okay.
In speaking with them, and the athletic director, not DPW, but, the rec director, and for rec programs at this location, they would use U8 fields because of the fields that are already at the other sites.
To me, it looks like it's probably the size of what's at the Whitfield.
Yeah.
In terms of the size.
I have a question, Ronnie, I'm looking here under option A, it says 24 plus or minus vehicles on site queue space. So if a parent is going to pick up their child from, I don't know, grade 3, 4, 5, whatever, are they going to queue up right along that dotted line that you've got around where the buses go? Is that where they would queue up?
So great transition, Diane, to this slide. So what we wanted to depict here was the circulation with the vehicle. So from Salem Street, these are the parent vehicles. And then from Ballardvale, you have the buses and how they would be able to queue. So in this depiction, we would have 24 vehicles on site to queue from Salem Street. And we can fit 15 buses on the queuing, as you can see, from Ballardvale. And then parking in general is, a little over 193 spaces on site currently shown in the plan. There is an option that if we felt that we wanted to explore, but we've already done to help almost double the queuing in this configuration, is that they potentially could use the parking lot to extend the queuing to allow for almost 44 vehicles in this configuration. Now, drop-off situations tend to move much quicker. And so this is why we show option A, and we've always talked about the flexibility to allow the buses to use the Salem Street location and entrance and queue around the Salem Street entry. And that would allow for more queuing on the Ballardvale side. So they would, it would flip if there was a desire to have more queuing. And so we have depicted that in option B. And so, for example, if in the afternoons, the school felt once it was in operation that they did need the additional queuing for pickup, for example, that they could actually do a switch and use Ballardvale for the parent vehicles, and they could fit over 88 vehicles in that queue, and then buses could fit about 12 in the front off of Salem Street. So it's to give that flexibility to allow for taking more vehicles off of Salem Street and Ballardvale and bringing them onto the site as much as possible.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I see the way they park for the middle school when, they're picking up the children. And I mean, they're all the way down Carter Lane there, queuing up there to pick up the students. So that's a good idea to have another option. Thank you.
Ronnie, I have a question. Could you point out the handicap parking? Is there anything right near the school for individuals with handicap?
Yeah, so for every project, there is a requirement for the number of handicapped vehicles and handicapped spaces. And so they're not depicted on here, but typically they're closer to the building. And depending on, where the curb cuts are to allow access onto the sidewalk from the parking spaces. But typically they are, very close to the entry, to limit the distance that's required. So, potentially there would be, some off of the Ballardville entry, because we have some parking there right now. There would be some potentially by the pre-K and main entry, where you come from Salem Street. And then, even, along the way between the parking lot and the other parking zones, there would always be accessible paths to access the building from the parking.
Okay, yeah, I was only asking because I didn't see it labeled yet. Okay.
Yeah, we haven't,
Thank you.
gone to that detail.
Dennis?
Yeah, no, only because we're talking about, I'm watching the car pattern. This is more around heating of the building. Where it looks like two primary doors going in, 800 students coming in, the doors open all morning on a cold morning. Will there be air curtains, or do everything in the plan for some type of air curtain to help keep that cold out when the 800 students coming in, the doors pegged for, I would think for 35, 40 minutes. We run into that in the schools now, and in old buildings, it takes all day almost to get that warmth back. So where it's two primary doors, is there something in the plan for that?
Yeah, we'll definitely be looking at that as we develop the plans, one, it's the vestibules, but there's also different entries. So the intent is that, the buses are potentially using the doors that are by the, cafeteria, and then vehicle drop off is happening at the main entry doors to help, stagger that a little bit. And then we also have the pre-K entrance. So, but yeah, and then the vestibules and the depth of the vestibules and all of that will be factored.
And I don't mean the way it sounds, but it's like herding cats when you see groups of them. So when the longer that door is open, the more heat you lost. So I'm just, like to look at that a little bit when you go forward.
Sure.
Christine.
Have we had, the Woburn Street and the North do a count of how many car riders we're experiencing on average in the morning and afternoon?
That's been
Yes.
generated,
Yes. And they actually looked at it too, so for even the vehicle, drop off and pickup, they looked at, combining families, so if you have, right now you have a parent that's going to Woburn and then you have another one that's going to, or the same parent that's driving to North, for example, they've combined that and they've looked at it from a family standpoint to give us a number as well.
So what is that number that we would be working with?
That number is about 165 vehicles. And that also includes pre-K and it wasn't differentiated as far as if there was a pre-K only student versus a pre-K student that's with older siblings.
Sorry, one other thing is, because I'm always at the different buildings, the parents and grandparents show up much earlier than school getting out. So that queuing starts a lot earlier. So I think the car side would probably be the longest side to me because they're there up to an hour plus, I think, sometimes before. So I think the longer for the cars may make sense.
My question is in this option B, would the little kids still be entering where previously we had discussed that kind of side where the buses are now shown?
They're a different time though.
Okay.
The littles would always, they have their own entry at the pre-K.
It would be a case where buses are going and it's like.
Oh,
Kind of one candidate, okay.
No. And the mini buses, if the pre-K students are on the mini buses, those buses have parking spaces also at the pre-K entry.
65 was like maximum, that was like the
Worst
worst
case.
case scenario, I don't know that, but that would be like the largest the number would get. That did not take into consideration the students who might use pairs. Because we really just used the numbers of students who were not assigned buses, and a lot of care students are assigned buses. So that number is a little bit larger than what we're actually realizing.
Is there like a way to analyze? I mean, obviously, in theory, 88 vehicles on site is a better option than the other in terms, it's definitely a bigger number. But then when you look, further north on the Ballardvale, there's a light there, there's on and off ramps with the highway, and how that queuing is gonna be with cars that can't be one of the 88, and how that's gonna really have a rippling effect even with highway traffic and with 125, which is a big business corridor. And that's it's a very confined space. So in theory, I would think, 12 buses, which might even be a light number. I'm thinking you're gonna need more buses than 12. you know, to get into that roundabout, that seems workable, but I'm just worried about the rippling effect of that queuing, even with 88, how it's gonna impact that area. And I just don't know how, I mean, is there a way to simulate that, to know what that looks like with the life cycle timing over there as well? Like, do they get to that level of analysis to know which option to go with, if that makes sense?
So we actually have our traffic engineer, Brian Zamongo with Niche on. Do you think if we hold the question,
Sure.
because later in the presentation, we do have a few slides for traffic and we can get into that a little bit.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. So the next couple of slides, you've seen a lot of these. We're just gonna do a quick update. So on the floor plan, you've seen this. We have been working on the cafeteria space, the stage configuration. Initially that was more on a diagonal, and we've kind of straightened that a little bit, and we've met with the music director to kind of work around the needs for different performances, the number of students that need to be on the stage for concerts. And we are tweaking the size and the dimensions of the opening to allow for clear sight lines. So we've been working on all of that. So that's a lot of what's been happening on the floor plan, and also just doing little tweaks to make sure that we're meeting the square footage requirements for MSBA. So this is the first floor, second floor, and third floor.
So did that closet that was on that wing space get moved, the utility closet that was creating?
Which floor?
I think it was wasn't it one of the utility closets that were on the lower floors?
They reduced the size of them to get the other one in?
No, but it created a blind corridor situation in the wing areas. I think the MSBA had even flagged that.
Oh, so those have been eliminated. Yeah, once we heard that feedback, we quickly reworked that design, yes. And then we developed plans to just help visualize the public and private spaces that we've kind of always referred to. So the blue is the public spaces. So this is the first floor plan where you see admin, cafeteria, gymnasium, pre-K entry. All of those on this east side of the building are the public spaces on the first floor. And then when you get into the academic wings, those are the private spaces. And to help separate those, we have security thresholds at each of those locations where the blue meets the pink. So this is on that first floor. On the second floor, we have public spaces for the library and the STEM room, flex classrooms. So those are all in that public zone. And then again, 2 grades on the second floor for the academic.
So the doors on the first floor, and then again here with the health door on the left wing from the view. I envisioned that the public-private line would be basically all, other than obviously the music room, which is on the far side of the building, all of the wing. And so on the first floor, there's 2 classrooms on the public side and then the rest are on the private side. Here, there's 1 classroom, the health room, on the public side. Is there a way to bring those doors down and put as many classrooms as possible behind those secure doors?
We definitely could, and I think we could review that with the principals to determine if they feel a classroom should actually be on the private side versus the public side. So, yeah, those security thresholds, that location of the door could potentially be on the private side, if you will. On the first floor, I think the spaces you're talking about are the music and art classrooms.
I believe so.
That are on that side, yeah. Part of that also has to do with potentially what spaces CARES might want access to. And so that's why those are also on the public side, so.
Thank you.
Ronnie, before we move on.
Sure.
I understand the spaces for the public side on the first floor. Can you just refresh my memory maybe and help me understand why all these sections are the public spaces in the blue on the second floor?
So it's partly because the library is on the second floor.
Why would that be considered public space?
I think for after hours with CARES especially,
Okay, so it's with CARES and not necessarily for
public to come in,
consumption.
right?
Okay.
And that would be a district decision if parents wanted to come in with students after hours, to visit the library, for example, but, it's to allow for that flexibility. Right, or if there, I guess if a meeting were to be held in the library.
Yeah, there's like the high school library is used for all kinds of meetings
Right.
after school hours.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it's more predominantly geared towards like the CARES program and, okay.
Yeah, just to add that flexibility.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Michael, do you have a question?
Dr. Brand. All right, go ahead. Yep.
Say it's good, sorry.
Go ahead, Michael.
Michael?
He lost connection.
Well, they could just, I guess to add to Vivian's point, if the second floor is more limited, maybe relocating a door or something that can limit the access just between the elevator and the library may be beneficial as we move on.
Are those windows looking into the gym on the second floor from the hallways?
They are.
Kids love that.
Yeah.
They love to see their friends.
And it just opens up that space because otherwise it would be a blank wall, right? So, and then the third floor, all, 3 grades, 3, 4, and 5 are on the third floor. And so we consider that as part of the public zone or private zone. So moving into some updates on the interiors. Part of the presentation to the staff was to allow for them to start visualizing a little bit some of the spaces and sample imagery. And so we just wanted to put some of that together here. So this is for public spaces and we really focused a lot on the cafeteria and gymnasium spaces. Those are the 2 largest spaces in this building. And, you know, that connection between the stage connecting to both sides of the cafeteria and the gymnasium. And as part of that, we had looked at the number of seating on both sides. So for smaller performances, you could fit almost about 295 seats with clear view of the stage on the cafeteria side. On the gymnasium side, there's 800 seats that you could place on the gym floor, and that would have access for the gymnasium side. But then also you have another additional 600 with the bleachers if they were opened up, and those would open up a little less. It would open up to about a third of the gymnasium for that 600 seats. So
You're talking 600 plus 800?
yes.
Okay.
Within the gymnasium. So it's you know, it is a 12,000 square foot gymnasium. It's a community resource, and to be able to have a large event in there, wanted to make sure that we have enough seats in there. So
Just as a point of reference, how much does the auditorium here hold? Do we know?
You mean the gym here?
The gym or the auditorium?
The
The
auditorium.
auditorium is
700.
650 to 700, yeah.
So a little
Yeah.
bit.
You hold the graduation there, I'm saying.
Yes. Oh, you could.
Just to put it in, I mean, like that's
Yeah.
gonna now become the biggest
Yeah.
public space. I mean, how much is the gym here hold?
well, it's the same size.
Same
as
size.
the-
Yeah.
It doesn't have a stage.
That's
So
why-
potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Just thinking of public use and efficiency.
Yeah, this is, you've got the same size gym and the
And stage,
and the
that's
stage
it.
area.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thank you.
You've seen this already. This is, you know, the cafeteria and, you know, using some of that double height space to potentially use murals, you know, that have some sort of theme that relate to whatever's going on, and we'll continue to develop those moving into the next phase. This is an updated image of the cafeteria and stage. You know, we heard a lot of feedback about the curtain wall, and so we have, you know, dropped it away from the ceiling, but then also raised the bottom threshold so that, you know, but as you can see, there's still a large window there. You'll see in here that there's the canopy on the exterior that was brought down. And then also the the stage area, like I said, we've squared that off a little bit to allow for curtains and then the lighting for any performance type space. In the background here, you can see administration, the library on the second floor, and those also have windows to integrate the two spaces together. And some of this evening. So that's the cafeteria. And then I'll kind of quickly go through the next couple because they're just different angles. So
The things hanging, are those for like sound echo mitigation?
yes, so those are for sound acoustics, and then also that particular one potentially could have a light fixture incorporated, but we will talk to Dennis about that as we move forward.
About cloud versus lead.
So, but it's, you know, a big part of it also is for us is to make sure we're accounting for those qualities, so the acoustical quality for pricing, you know, and you know, as we continue to develop the design, those will get more refined to figure out, you know, exactly which product and which ones we're looking at.
So with that, do you get into the whole sound quality if there were, do you get into all that with the design
We
as
will.
well? Because, you know, in the auditorium, it's pretty sophisticated, but I've been in certain events in the high school gym, for example, and the acoustics are not great. So
Yeah,
you can't hear announcing, you know, when you can't hear the voice.
yeah, the acoustical consultant will be calculating all of that and helping to make sure that we are accounting for, you know, all of the different materials in the space and, you know, what's absorbing sound and the bounce and all of that.
But differently is the high school gymnasium was never meant to be for acoustical performances or anything, whereas this gym will have that component to it. So the sound attenuation on the gym side will be different than the high school.
I just want to make sure it's in the back.
Yeah.
I would be interested to see some renderings of the gym side, of the stage at some point too, so.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm just going to quickly kind of go through these because they're just different angles. This is from that balcony in front of the library. A closer view of that stair leading up to the second floor, the main entry and administration.
Are those the light fixtures that are hanging toward, are they fans or just light fixtures?
Those are a light fixture.
I didn't say it.
We have them incorporated in buildings and spaces to help circulate since it's a double-story space, so just a question.
I'll throw one in there. And now there's a problem with it under that over that staircase. Go work on it.
This just shows some of the space underneath the stair and incorporating that into, you know, this is part of the cafeteria and knowing that there's different age groups to have, you know, options for different seating and, you know, just starting to explore all of that. Then we also worked on the media center library. So this space, we met with the librarian. I'd like to think she was very happy with what she saw. You know, we really tried to listen to a lot of her initial feedback, and we've made adjustments. For example, initially we had the circulation desk right in the center, thinking that would be the position, but they actually asked us to move it against one of the walls to allow for the greatest amount of flexibility of the space so that, you know, different times of the year, or maybe not in the year, but, you know, different years, they might want to rearrange the room and to be able to do that. And so, you know, everything would be on casters to allow for a lot of that flexibility of relocating bookshelves and seating. You know, they like to set up the space to have classes. So this is set up to allow for 2 classes to be in there simultaneously, to be able to have separate lessons, but then also incorporating different types of seating, whether it's soft seating, you know, some more structured seating, like I said, with the classrooms, that, you know, being able to set it up in different configurations, but incorporating all of that and planning for that.
So I guess this may have already been discussed and decided upon, and the rationale may have already been gone through, but with regard to the bathrooms being facing out to the hallway, I feel like you're in the library, I mean, event in the library, having like, and if, you know, you're teaching a group of kids and they go to the bathroom, having them go out in the hall and then come back and they're like 8 years old, it's a little tough to control. Has there been consideration of maybe one pointing inward, one outward, or?
We don't have a background in the library.
Thanks, Diane. And then this is a 3D view of the space. And this is all, these are just really helpful to help visualize. I know we're so used to looking at plans and we can understand and read those, but we find that the 3D model and developing these and the renderings really help bring everything to life, so.
How many stacks are there?
A lot. I don't remember the exact count, but it's a very large number of volumes that are here. It's actually
Yeah, it's
one of the
fantastic.
larger ones that we've seen for an
Well, especially because it's consolidating three schools too, so, no. Fantastic.
And so we've been working with the librarian on the number of books and making sure that we're accounting for that. The challenge I will say with elementary is you try to avoid having stacks that are too tall. And so trying to fit that in with lower stacks is, it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge to have. But.
That's fantastic. Our elementary program has a really good, robust library, and the kids take books out all the time. It's really well used. And so I think this is fantastic. And it really does speak to the use and the importance of the library to the educational experience for the kids. So I really appreciate the way it's laid out. And the amount of books that you store. They do have a good selection.
And a rendering of the library, you can see the glazing. We are showing similar acoustical treatment in here, but it's just because the spaces are definitely connected and we'll continue to be working on that. And then the next section here, a lot of this is the extended learning areas. And so we have talked a lot about the pre-K. And so I'll kind of quickly go through this, but it's set up to allow for flexibility of classes or groups of students being in the extended learning area for the full day pre-K. There's an area for them to be able to sit and have lunch. So it's like their little mini cafeteria space, if you will, but then also to be used for small groups during the day. All of the furniture is more play-based, a lot of soft furniture for the younger students, but then also to allow for flexibility if they have to do indoor recess and being able to move things around, but then also be able to meet as a larger group if desired. Yes. Kindergarten's extended learning area is similar. It's a similar age group, a little bit more structured, but still more play-based and a lot of flexibility and some softer seating to allow for the movement of the furniture. And one thing you'll notice here is for the younger grades, the cubbies are in the classroom. And when we get to the older grades, you'll notice that they actually come.
When you guys did Westwood and we walked it, then you put the cubbies on the outside, you could make the classrooms a little smaller, but that gave you, I thought that's what they were saying on the tour, was by putting the cubbies outside, you actually gain more room in the classrooms?
You do, and that's definitely a preference for each school district. For that particular project, they wanted to be able to have all of the areas similar so that they could, if ever in the future they wanted to move grades around, they could. And what they would then do is just the hooks could be raised or lowered, but all of the lockers or the cubbies were all at similar heights. And yeah, so it was the desire of that district to have it that
But it
way
gave them a lot more flexibility
in the
in
classroom.
the classrooms in general.
When you get to first grade, again, so these are similar. You just start to see as the grades move up, the furniture gets to be a little bit more structured because it's not so much more as play-based, but still flexible to allow for furniture to be rearranged and allow for multiple classes to be in the extended learning area or an entire grade to even want to gather if they wanted in the extended learning area. Second grade, very similar to first grade. sorry, I'm gonna go through these very quickly. There's a lot of slides. Third, fourth, and fifth grade, this is kind of grouped together. They have a lot of area, and a lot of it is somewhat shared. So when you get to, the grades here, go back one. So on the plan here, there are some smaller nooks, if you will, and then the larger open areas for the extended learning areas. So that's what these different plans are. Some are those larger areas, and then you have with different seating.
Going back one slide very quick. Bottom right, red, that circular tabletop, is that meant to be a teacher's desk?
No, it's just to allow for students to stand versus having to sit. So it's just a higher.
How much of what we have is disability inclusive?
As far as what we're proposing?
Yes.
So everything that we proposed is accessible. Like the higher tabletop then has a lower tabletop next to it to allow for a student to also still be working as a group, if that makes sense. So we are definitely mindful of anything that we're putting in that it allows for flexibility for any user. Or at least there's an alternate option, I should say, if needed. Right now, I'm gonna just kind of go through these. This is Dennis's favorite slide, I believe. So in the academic wings, we are planning for linoleum. A lot of it has to do with the ease of maintenance, which Dennis has started to touch on. But also it allows for a lot of fun graphics. It helps with the wayfinding, especially for the younger students. We can use the colors to create a fun path that students know is part of their circulation route, whether it's leading to their academic wing or leading to the classrooms from there. But it's, you know, like the one on the right is the turtles that are swimming over to the sink, you know, so it just creates a fun environment, especially when we look at an elementary school.
Have we finalized a theme, overall theme?
No.
I don't have to strip them actually cool, that's what I meant.
They're all going that direction.
Are you down with turtles and pro seahorse?
I love the theme, and each floor could be one of them.
This is a rendering that showed the pre-K areas, just to give you an idea of some of the play-based options. This is not finite, but it's just to give ideas of how these spaces could be used.
I don't know. That in my house.
These are some of the renderings.
Cost.
We'll get donations from all the kids.
Oh.
It will be Lego-like.
Plenty of Lego.
Ryan, when we're looking at the hallways, because this has come up in the high school.
Sure.
You know, we're now trying to come up with a process to hang things on the wall, because we always didn't want to drill into the CMU block. In the design of an elementary school, I can imagine I see it in every hallway, there's more to hang. What is on the wall? What material is it that they'll be able to hang stuff so that we're, you know, again, it's protected and it gives them the flexibility to hang as much as they want.
Sure. So every town has different requirements. It really is the fire marshal, you know, that will dictate how much can be put on the wall because of the potential fire hazards that come with that. So typically we have some sort of tack strips or you know, tack boards, display cases that are spread out. They're not in the renderings yet, but it just allows for the display of, you know, artwork or, you know, student, sculptures, and also even on the top of some of the cubbies that are in the hallway at the upper grade. Sometimes those can be used as display spaces as well. So it's just a variety that will account for and develop more as we get into further into the design.
Thank you. Any thought to extending that into the library area?
Absolutely, yeah. There's the potential for display cases.
Yeah.
At the library, we have accounted for, display cases near that pre-K entry as well and around the gymnasium, because that otherwise would be a very opaque space. And so we're accounting for that both on the first and, second levels.
I love these cases that are here, and I'm always struck by everything that's in them. So if there's a way that we can replicate that in this school too, these are just beautiful, and the things inside them are just beautiful.
This is an image of, or sample imagery of the small group rooms. This is a rendering of one of the small group rooms in the space here. Classroom space. Renderings. Starts to show the casework in the classroom spaces.
In this example, are those desks pushed together or is it one long table?
They're pushed together. So typically we would have 1 to 2 students at a desk, depending on how long they are. And then they can be pieced together or they can be separated. So before we jump into the traffic study, anybody have any questions on the 70-something images you just saw?
I just want to say quickly, I was not at the last meeting, so I don't know if we went over some of this most recent updated interior imagery, but I thought like the cap stuff especially, I was getting, and also just all the materials and the vision, it's really coming to life for me. I'm having like an emotional response. It looks awesome. I'm like so excited like for kids to go in pre-K and then kind of level up through the school. We haven't had that in town in a long time. I think it's going to be great. So all the artistic design stuff with respect to Dennis and the lights. So
Well, okay, so the next part here, we have, we wanted to bring Brian Zamoka. He's with Niche Engineering, and they did the traffic study for the project. And, we had the traffic study done in the fall. And, we kind of gave a brief summary of what that information was. And then, also it was brought up at the abutters meeting. And then after that, we actually met with DPW and the chief engineer to review the report in more detail. They had some comments. And so we all sat down together on a Zoom call and went through all of their comments to address it. And, at the end of the day, this project is for the community. Yes, the MSBA portion of that is limited in the site, the property lines, but, there are some impacts around the site, and we definitely heard that at the abutters meeting, and, we want to make sure that we're somehow accounting for that, and so we are, working with the town to make sure we understand what those concerns are, and then, see what can be done, whether, doing some changes on the site within the project or potentially outside of the project. But, at the end of the day, it's a collaborative approach to make sure that whatever we do here has a positive impact at the end of the day as much as we can. So, I'm going to turn it over to Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Ronnie. As Ronnie mentioned, my name is Brian Zamoka. I'm a senior project manager at Niche Engineering, where I focus on traffic engineering and have done many projects, school-related projects, definitely with Dora Whittier. So excited to be here. So I'm going to give you a quick 3-slide update here. So part of the traffic study. So we studied Ballardvale Street, the I-93 southbound ramp, Salem Street, Middlesex Ave, High Street, and Route 62, and then the school driveways. Pick these roadways because they were identified as some of the crucial roadways which people access or use to get to the school, and also our commuter routes. As part of every traffic study, we conduct our traffic counts to understand the volumes along the roadways. This is done typically during a typical weekday. This one specifically was on October 24th in the fall. So what did we observe? So we observed and calculated some existing operational deficiencies, mainly at these 2 ones that are noted on this slide: Salem Street at Middlesex and Route 62 and Middlesex High. We also conducted a safety analysis. So we reviewed the historical crashes from 2016 to 2020. That might sound old, but the reason for that is those are the fully documented years that are available through current traffic engineering standards. When we look at our crash rates and we do comparisons to statewide and district averages, we want to have the full array of crashes. So that is the reason that's the latest 5 years available. So what did we find? So we found that the crash rates at the study intersections are actually lower than the state and district-wide averages, which is a good thing. It means that there are not as many accidents that are occurring that would be typical for areas throughout the state. And what did we find specifically to Ballardvale? Ballardvale experiences speeds higher than that should be at a school. 31 miles an hour is the 85th percentile speed. Typically, you'd want much lower at a school. Just a quick, side note, working with or talking to the DPW, understand that Ballardvale experiences, different levels of traffic throughout the day. When we were out there, we observed slow but generally free flow traffic. Working with the DPW and collaborating, really understanding what the everyday situation is. We understand that some days it is much more backed up than others. Unfortunately, we did not observe that, so we take DPW's word for that. So, looking at the mode split, what did we understand? We understand that most students arrive by bus. Looking at the parking, so we observed, when we were out there, we observed sufficient parking provided on site. And what we do is we take the amount of parking that's on site, compare it to the number of students, and which generates a parking ratio. And then we take that parking ratio and apply it to the future number of students to understand the amount of parking spaces that will be required. And our calculations basically indicate that the 193 spaces that will be on site will be sufficient to accommodate the demand. We also looked at the queuing capacity for pickup drop-off currently. And what we noticed there is that everything is able to be accommodated on site. Nothing got spilled back to Ballardvale, which was great. And from my understanding and future projections, that will be a very similar situation in the future condition. Next slide, please.
Sorry, can you please clarify, on-site queuing is accommodated in both Plan A and Plan B, or in one of the other options?
So when I refer to queuing, I'm talking about the existing today queuing. When we use those numbers, and that's, I think, Ronnie could kind of give a little more color to this, but that's basically, those numbers are used to help indicate what queuing is going to be necessary when they're creating their site layout. And that was indicated on those options that you had seen earlier in the presentation. Does that answer your question?
Are you asking about, because he was talking about using the existing site and then he looks at the number of students that we're proposing and then with the site plan, and that would actually be accommodated for based on what they're seeing today.
They're overlaying the existing with the proposed to see where the deltas are, how they can accommodate them.
Is that a similar ratio, in the same way of the parking? That
Correct.
Just calculate the ratio and then apply to the larger population of the new building?
Yes.
Correct. That's a blanket methodology we do for projecting parking, trips, and such. We calculate a ratio and then use those future numbers to project future volumes, demand, so on and so forth. So it's very ratio-based calculations.
Dennis?
Yeah, one quick thing is based on, there's only a couple hundred students to the north now, but on those extreme days that we talked about in that meeting online, how late are the buses then, or how much does that impact the schools then? Do we have, is there a gut feel for you know, geez, when we do have those backups on the 200 students today, does that really throw up the start time, or you don't see a big difference? Traffic's not really affecting that, because obviously, if it's affecting 200 students, it's gonna affect 800 more, so I'm just curious.
Diane, do you want to comment at all?
So oddly enough, this year we haven't really had any backups. Last year we did, and the year before was even worse. So I don't know if people are just using the buses more, or using cares more, but the only day that actually it hasn't been that bad this year either, it's Tuesday mornings when we have ski club, because the kids are coming in with their skis and their backpacks a lot. So it was 6 weeks. I went out early, so I pulled kids out of their cars earlier, so that we just alleviated the traffic. I honestly can't think of a day, and I do arrival and dismissal every day. I can't think of a day that we had a problem.
But now, if you look at the traffic on like, I'd say it's a month ago now, that was a big accident on 93 and it backed up everything. I left it north at, I don't know, 7:30 in the morning. It took me 40 minutes to get to my office, but with the start time of the school, that may not be as big because of rush hours, but I'm just curious if
That
those
day
impacts.
didn't impact us. It didn't impact us on our campus, but it impacted getting buses to and out of our school, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Was there any other questions before I move on to the second slide?
I think we're good.
Okay, great. So looking at the traffic impact and the proposed conditions. So school trips increase by a factor of 3.42. That sounds like a huge number, but that is based on the pure increase in size of students. But what does that mean to traffic on the roadways? So, you know, we're projecting only a 1% increase in traffic on Ballard Vale. 21% in Morning, 24% on Salem. But that's, you know, those are basically derived because we understand that most of the cars will come from Salem Street and will use that Salem Street driveway. So I'm not making definitive statements right now because what we observed in terms of Ballard Vale is not the extreme condition. However, we are not anticipating that we're going to exacerbate Ballard Vale at all. It's going to be really, the traffic is going to be concentrated on Salem Street. So we estimated the traffic based on the current trip rates, which I was just mentioning before, car trips per student. And then, like I said, we used those rates to project the future traffic. So the net increase in trips, 172 total trips in the morning. What does that mean? 3 cars per minute. I like to put those cars per minute because it adds a little bit of context. And then in the afternoon, 285, which is about 5 cars per minute. So it's not adding a significant backup, but you can get a feel if you're sitting, you know, if you're a neighbor and you're sitting, looking out the window, what the increase in traffic is going to be. You're going to see 3 cars in the morning, 5 cars in the afternoon per minute. And then the mode share breakdown, and this is more from what the the percentages that we understood talking to the school. There's about 24 walking trips in the morning, 243 cars, 24 buses, 24 buses. And in the PM, 24 walking, 403 cars, 20 bus trips. Those are just really those. It's really the passenger car trips that are used when we are analyzing the intersection operations. So those are kind of the key numbers to remember when you look at the traffic study. Next slide, please.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
I just don't see how these numbers work, because in option A, you have 44 vehicles able to queue on the site. And then in option B, you have 88 vehicles able to queue up on the site. But you're talking about in the top table, you're talking about entering in the morning 168 cars. Exiting is 75. I'm not so worried about the exiting. And in the afternoon, entering is 133 cars. If you're able to queue up 88 cars and you have 133 cars entering the site, how do those numbers work?
Well, it's not a snapshot in time calculation. What it is assuming over a half hour period of pickup and drop off. So assuming you drop off a kid, move. It's kind of a circulating, it circulates. So it's not an exact science. It's more of a planning metric. But it is assuming that it's not a static queue for a half an hour.
Are dismissal times staggered for the grades?
They won't be in this building. Right now,
Won't
the
be.
plan is for K to 5 to be all at the same time. Pre-K will be at a different time.
We need to get close to an exact science. For what we're talking about for these numbers, because they're gonna be cars up and down Salem Street, up and down Belleville. With these numbers.
Yeah, the wild card in this, I'm just checking with Ronnie, is the CARES program. And the understanding here is the CARES wasn't understandably able to be incorporated in this calculation because that varies from year to year.
And data.
And day to day, but you all know well, many of you, the CARES program is so very popular here. We're planning this building around this, so the total number of students leaving at the end of the day, as well as those coming, will be impacted by the CARES program, as it is right now.
Isn't it almost like half the student population takes part in the CARES?
I
Is there
can't
like
quote numbers in the moment. We can find out and give you some sort of view of what that looks like across the schools, but it is large numbers we were talking about.
Right, because that will impact it as
Without
well, because
question.
the CARES program lets out a lot later.
Yeah.
So you won't have as many parents and population exiting the school at the dismissal hour.
Is there also any reasonable assumption to make about increase in use of buses because you would have siblings together?
Other than.
Yeah, they don't have the bus together now, they
Yeah.
just get off at different schools. So if I have two kids and then one goes to Wood Street and one goes to Ledyard North, I would put them both on the same bus, one would get off at one school, one would get off.
No, I understand that, but I wonder, knowing
Yeah.
that you've got the older sibling to watch
When
when
they're
you're
on and off at
on.
the same school, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I think that there's.
No more than maybe a gut right now, or is it put on my parent hat? But I have to imagine that will be a factor as well too here that could easily lead to greater ridership.
But I think that the numbers from the CARES program would be crucial for us to have to try to factor this, because that's what's gonna be the real, that'll be a small impact.
Yeah.
50%, 40%, 30% of kids going to CARES has a real impact on pickup.
And again, like I would suggest that like the transportation point there, right now, if you have a parent who has children spread across multiple schools, this is a one stop with a second grader and a fourth grader, whatever that might be. I think that certainly, so I can absolutely gather those numbers and report that. Yeah.
We do have that number somewhere. I just don't
Yeah.
have it off the top of my head, but it is a large number of students that actually.
CARES is CARES run by the town?
School department.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that will always be there.
yeah, yes.
And it's a necessity for working parents. So one other part of that too would be the staff parking increase as well, because you have staff coming over for that may not be in the building during the day teaching the students, they're incremental staff that come in. So would you have enough parking spaces to accommodate the overlap of the existing staff that needs to be there for the regular school day and then the additional personnel?
There's a fair
That
delta
comes
for
in.
that. There's a considerable, I forget,
Yeah.
but if
So
you look
it
at
was
that
between
numbers.
120 to max 140 parking spaces for a pre-K 5.
Yeah.
And we have about 193, and that's to account for events and, additional parking that might be needed for sports or after school or.
Good question, but there'll be plenty of space for
Okay.
the adults working there, even for care programming and such.
I just think we need to keep a close eye on this stuff, the vehicle queuing and the reality of what's gonna happen to those roads.
Yeah. Lee?
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Brand. I just have a question, and Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to Paul's point about queuing space, right? And we either have, 24 or 88 cars, depending on which option in the build scenario where we could bring cars on site. The current situation, as I understand, just looking at these charts, in weekday morning peak with the existing population at North Intermediate, you have 71 right? And existing queue, we have 24. So to Paul's point, right, it's never the full amount that you're getting on site to queue, right? We have the ability existing to have 24 cars pulled into the site, but we're actually, peak flow is like 71. So if you extrapolate that out, right, into the future build scenario, right, we have the ability to either have, 40 cars or 80 cars pulled on site, and looking at those high demand numbers of either, 243 or more. So it's not, to Brian's point of it, it's not static. That line is always moving, and it's never intended to have every single drop-off parent coming in at the same time, staying static on the site and then moving out. It's a circulation issue. Does that sound correct, Brian?
Yeah, yes, thank you. You said it better than I did.
But Brian, the point that I had brought up earlier, if you were to flip it and actually have the cars go on Ballardvale and the buses go on Salem, I would think the 1 and the 21 up there for the increases would be flipped, because Ballardvale would now be a heavily used street once the cars have to travel onto it. It now increases that percentage. But then you have the on-ramp and the lighting structure on 125, like this. Does the overall simulation of that proposed flipping option work at the end of the day?
Well, I think the cars would still be coming from Salem. They would be driving up to Ballardvale.
Yeah.
Correct, but then they would still be theoretically an increase on Ballardvale Street because they've had to step on.
Yeah, that's 6% in between, which is basically the in between the two entrances. That's the number that would change. We flipped the.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So technically, you're correct. There will be an increase on Ballardvale. It's just a very small portion of Ballardvale, and we're looking at Ballardvale as a whole coming from 93. That's still will only be a 1% increase, whether that driveway's on Ballardvale or Salem.
Where is the 6% that you're seeing, Eric? Am I not seeing it?
So the 6% right there, yeah. So those represent the increases at the driveways. So that's intersection volume increases. I'm really focusing on the the increase to the roadway volumes as a whole, because obviously you look at the driveways and there's going to be a lot more volume at that intersection because there wasn't a driveway there to begin with.
Mary Ann, I think your hand's raised.
Yeah, so I'm not so much concerned about the drop off because, like you said, it's just more of pulling in, dropping off. It's the pickup that's going to be the issue with the queuing. So you get 39, I believe, entering, or is it 118 with the existing 250 students?
Sorry, so we're
So the weekend afternoon peak, right? 118. Is that for the pickup of the north?
Oh, that's the existing, yeah. So that's the existing total entering or total trips. So that's a car coming in and leaving is 2 trips. So 1 car, 2 trips.
One
and that's
car,
probably
okay,
Usually,
yeah, and there is a little bit of confusion when it comes to that, because when we're looking at the roadway within 1 hour, if a car is coming in and coming out, you're on that roadway twice within an hour or a half an hour if you're looking at a school. So that's why you have to think of the trips, especially when it comes to a school. If an elementary school, a high school would be different because students are driving and they're staying. Parents are dropping off, coming back out, so they're on that roadway twice. That's why it's considered 2 trips. Does that make sense?
Yes. So when you're saying entering, that's going to be 39 cars going into the north?
Yeah, and yes, that's what's counted. That's what was counted.
Okay, so 39, so to speak, parents picking up kids for 250 students. Correct?
Yeah.
So now
Correct.
we are gonna have over, what, 700 coming out at the same time?
755.
So 755 coming out at the same time.
Basically triple coming out at the same time because it's.
Yeah, so the 133 entering, I think is a very low number. If you already have 39 coming in for 250 kids, I think you're, just to Diane's point earlier, if you go down the middle school who only has, 620 kids, that place is an absolute zoo.
Correct.
Pick up and drop off, but pick up, Diane is right, everybody's lined down every part of that street. They're parked behind the west. I mean, I think these numbers are underestimated at this point.
And I appreciate, I really do appreciate your feedback, because this definitely helps us kind of understand and refine what the modifications need to be. Obviously, you all live and breathe this area more than I do, so it's really great to hear the feedback. And as Ronnie mentioned before, we are working with DPW to figure out the most appropriate modifications that work for the whole town.
So are these numbers correct, or are these numbers going to go up?
These numbers are correct in the sense of what was calculated. And like I said, it's a planning tool. We're working with DPW. We received a comment letter that we are going to address. And one of the comments does address this. I do not have the specifics in front of me, but we will be diving into the existing or the proposed trip generation based on some of their thoughts. So these numbers may change, may not, the next time you see this presentation. But these numbers will also take into consideration any changes, what you all have mentioned today.
Also gather the CARES numbers with a look back. If I'm not mistaken, the Woburn Street School has historically, or at least for some time, been the largest percentage of students. And we're talking over 3 digits. So you're going to have that as a factor here again, as was mentioned. But I'll gather that data for our next meeting on March 25th.
So for the existing 250 students, when we look at the weekday entering, so we have 49 cars entering. That's just counting, literally just counting the number of cars that pull into the school property.
Correct.
Was that calculated?
The 249. Is it 39 or 240?
The 49.
49 in the morning. Sorry. I thought you said 249.
I'm looking at the morning, 49 entering.
Correct.
And that's just literally just like counting how many cars like pull into the property. So that's staff as well, right? Who are not queuing up, who are just going and parking in the parking lot, correct?
That's either, staff. That could be staff, or it's also parent drop off. So it's a combination.
Okay, so but then
it literally counts anybody coming through the driveway.
Right, because that's something to bear in mind, that in the morning, it's not all parents dropping off who are potentially queuing up. Some of them are just parking and then going into the building because that's staff. Likewise, in the afternoon, you're gonna have more people leave. That's why I think you were saying that some of these people are using the roadway twice, because that's parents who come in and leave but for some of it, it's just the staff leaving for the day.
Correct, and I appreciate you noting that. That's a very important point.
Probably have to think a little bit granularly about that as well, that not everyone who enters and leaves the site is it's not just parents, basically. We should also remember that the staff is entering and leaving.
So simply, the part of the reason why the 24 spaces works today, if you do the math between the 49 and the 22 is the parents that have made the trip in and out. The difference is going to be the 27 staff who went in and parked.
Right.
So the total number of cars today in the morning is for parents, for 250 students, is 22. Well, then count. So it's 10% of the students, and there could be 2 kids in the car if they've got both, 4th and 5th grade. And then on the way out, by definition, there's clearly some that I'm not quite clear on, because it suggests there's 40 staff leaving. So maybe some of the staff got there early before they start the count. I don't know. But it suggests that there's 40 parents picking up. So some kids ride the bus in the morning, and the more kids are taking the car home in the afternoon. But that does suggest 40 parents on 250 is, you know, it's about 20% of the student body. And so it's not the majority of the student body, it's not even a third of the student body is going by car. So, and we factor in cares, and we factor in, you know, parents who are late or early, depending on the direction we're talking about. I'm not suggesting necessarily that these numbers are 100% accurate, but I can get to where they make sense.
That 133 is still worrisome to me.
It is fair. Yeah,
Yeah, 133 in the afternoon is the challenge. I agree with you.
Michael, I see you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Dr. Brand. I think something that needs to be considered here. So the North is currently 2 grades, and this new school will now go to 6. That is going to greatly increase the number of students who have a sibling 2 or 3 years apart that are at the school. So we're not talking, you know, 3 times the kids means 3 times the cars picking up. I also know there are people, and we noted the afternoon, Stephen, thank you. The afternoon pickup is greater. Based on a lot of the buses go between the Woburn and the North, and then the North and the Woburn takes another 5 minutes to get students home. I have friends who pick up at one of the schools, say they're first in line at Woburn Street, and they come straight across to the North to pick up child number 2 at the end of that cycle. That's more car trips and vehicles moving around that may not move at the same pace or frequency if there's now a greater chance your children are at the school together.
Thanks, Michael. Stacy and then Dennis. Stacy.
Yes. So I just wanted to say, so we already started looking at the car rider situation for the schools. And I know between Diane and I, between the North and the Woburn Street, we have around 100 kids. Every day I have between 45 and 62 car riders. 62 is my max. So Diane has about between 27 and 39. So we averaged about 100 between our 2 schools at max a day. So I think that 133 is actually pretty close estimate for the car rider situation. Could be a little bit lower.
Thanks, Stacy. Dennis.
So just because I've been at the Woburn Street a little bit lately, so this afternoon I was there, and I got there about 4:30, 4 to 5, I think, and CARES was active, and it's not like everyone leaves at the same time coming out of CARES. There was a constant parent coming up and kid leaving. So it was, when I first pulled up, there was 5 cars out front, they were all going in, and that was kind of a continuous thing until I left there about 6:10. So when you think of the CARES group, it's when you get out of work to go pick up your kids. So that really stretches out over a 2-hour period on those pickups of the kids that are in CARES not at the same time. Then looking at general traffic coming to or from the school, depending on before or after school. Right now, we got a lot of out-of-towners using that road to 93. We're fortunate to have 4 or 5 exits, whatever is it off 93. That may force some people though that are out of town that come that way to go to a different exit, which will now take some of that traffic in front of that school away. And that's hard to judge right now because we don't know how that's gonna affect that. But I would think if that was a normal road for me and now I'm gonna deal with that school, I might come down 93, 1 more exit or 2 more exits. So that traffic flow could change a little, and we can't really judge for that either.
Thanks, Dennis. Eric.
The other thing I think it's important to know is morning drop off conflicts with rush hour in a way that afternoon pickup doesn't. So I know in my town, everybody knows when afternoon pickup is at the middle school and the high school. They're right next to each other. It turns that place into a disaster, and you just avoid it because if there's not a rush hour in that afternoon, that people are worried about getting to work. They, you know, the people who know it just don't go on those roads because it turns into a parking. And then by the time rush hour comes, it's gone. By the time you get to the end of the day when people are coming home from work, that pickup is, you know, it turns into what you said, which is like a few kids being picked up or dropped off. The challenge in the morning is that's kind of an overlap with people trying to commute to work. And so that people dropping off at school is going to be challenged by did somebody divert people off 93 to go down Vallaville, or people from town going through town or driving on that street to try to get to work. So I think it is there are differences in realities between pickup and drop off that I think people adjust to new traffic patterns. and understand that certain times of day, things become, harder to navigate, and so they just, they use alternate priorities.
Nick and then Steve.
I don't want to jump ahead, Brian, as to any more kind of evaluation we've done ahead in these slides. I'm very interested to see what else you have to say, but maybe one idea we should start talking about is, can we push 88 to 100? Is that possible? Can we nix a playground or two and push the queue capacity even higher? Or is that, no? Maybe it's just like.
The kids need a
playground.
Yeah.
It's just,
Playground.
There's a couple like, what?
Yeah. But I think there's traffic pattern suggestions that we could look into, and traffic lights that would help alleviate some of the length of stay at those lights, maybe a little bit elongated to allow for the flow to happen. And that is something that you could be looking at with DPW and what changes can be made that way. But I wouldn't cut a playground for it, sorry.
To the traffic experts and the town, when I look at those roads on that side of town consistently, when there's a lot of traffic, particularly in the afternoon and morning rush hours, it's because Google Maps is diverting people off the highway, because there's an accident somewhere above or below on 93.
Right.
I understand there's some towns neighboring New York and New Jersey that have gotten some way into the Google algorithm to basically say, thou shalt not divert. I don't know, and actually they have some way of law behind them to do this, where they petition and say, you must remove this as an option for people traveling longer distances. Is there a way we can follow up on that sort of thinking to try and protect this corridor, particularly if we're having a school this size in that location, where we can alleviate that? It's amazing how consistent it is. Because bad traffic on Woburn Street or West Street is because there's an accident on 93.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and I've already had that conversation with Paul Looney and Val Gingrich and Jamie Rigaldi to talk specifically about seeing if we can reach out to Google in ways and get us that corridor removed from the algorithm. I know that it's happened before, so I know that it's possible, and so we've had that discussion. And the second thing I just wanted to mention to folks is we've already started talking about potential improvements at Salem and Middlesex and on Salem Street and Salem High, potential improvements that quite frankly probably needed now, because the traffic already warrants it. Those intersections have challenges. So we've already started discussing what that would entail and maybe reevaluating the current capital plan to accelerate some engineering work on this so that we can get it engineered and get that, with the idea to have the traffic, if this goes forward, when this gets forward, that the traffic changes that may be required to alleviate some of the backups, at least at Salem and at Middlesex and High, dealt with in a better fashion. So we've already started having those discussions.
Perfect segue to the last slide.
You took the words right out of my mouth. So yeah, just to wrap it up here. So the two, looking at the future intersection operations, the two major intersections that were previously noted as the most limited operations, let's for lack of a better word. So how do we rate these? So we rate these, for level of service on a scale of A to F, very similar to a school, A being best, F being fail. And these grades are calculated based on the intersection delay and approach queuing. So what these letters are showing here is that the results indicate that the school is actually not going to exacerbate these existing operations at these intersections. There are pre-existing operational deficiencies, and the mitigation options that we have here are really options to the town that we would like to work with them to evaluate. So I guess the high level message really that I kind of want to wrap up is we recognize that combining these three schools will bring traffic impacts. It's a major increase and it's a major improvement. And we know what those impacts are. And like I said, these recommendations we're making to the town for improvements are are for pre-existing operational deficiencies. We want to work with the town to make sure just the roadway network is enhanced in itself. And we're working collaboratively with the DPO over time to, determine what those appropriate offsite improvements are going to be. So Ronnie, I will hand it back to you.
Thank you, Brian. I'll pause and see if there's any questions at this point. Are we good? Oh, there we go.
My question is through you, sorry, to the town, I guess, are these improvements we'd be able to do in the interim? Should you pass the school in the fall, we'll be able to work on these between now and then? But again, no opening of the school?
Yeah, so the goal is, based on the, again, very preliminary discussions, would be to, accelerate any engineering of these two intersections, either restriping, resignalization, redesign if that's required here, to an earlier capital year than they're currently contemplated. And then with the idea that we would try to get them constructed prior to occupation of the school, because that would be the and not knowing exactly what the answers are, it's hard to say exactly how quick that could happen. But in my conversations with Paul Looney, who's the town engineer, he's already thinking about how to restructure this and what we need to do at the other, and restructure this intersection that's on the screen, and what we need to do at the other intersection in Middlesex and High so he has ideas, and they're gonna be working with Niche on what the actual, different options are, so that then we can go out and engineer it and hopefully set it up for construction prior to the opening date of that school. Would be the goal.
I think the other part of that too, just to add, is that, we know, we talked about abutters, we talked about cost. Traffic is gonna be one of the biggest factors about getting the public vote and attention. And it's already been articulated that there's a certain scope of this that's within the project, and there's gonna be a certain scope of this that's gonna be outside of the project. So I'm just piggybacking what Eric's saying, is that we know what's riding on this and mitigating this or attempting to mitigate it. It's just, this is what I've learned even through the leadership call coming into tonight. This is at the very beginning of this process. So there's still a lot of information that needs to be determined and discussed to be able to try and even attempt to address and know what the cost and the timeline is. But it's more just to say that it is on the town's radar screen in conjunction with all of the partners that we have, because we know that the public is going to be asking very pointed questions, very specifically about this very matter, and we need to have responses for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have to say this real quick. That intersection right there is in front of one of the most historical houses in town. And so we need to strike a balance with what happens there. And I hope it's not a light, some kind of a signal or something like that, but I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but
Is it registered as a?
that's the Cadwalader Ford House, which is where the Minutemen gathered and marched to Lexington. So that is a very, very historic house, 300-year-old house in town, so.
I was just more curious if it was registered with the Historical Society or if it's just considered a.
Sure that it
They
is.
have a sign on the house.
No, I'm just saying that we need to strike a balance with whatever we do there and maintain.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, I know. I agree with you. That's
Yeah.
the kind of thing. And I wouldn't want to do something that was radical anyway.
Yeah.
But that's not the thoughts that we've come up with. And I don't want to say what Paul's talking about, because it's very specific and very preliminary. I don't want to make any kind of promises, but he definitely has ideas that are, I think, appropriate and would make sense. I've seen it in places that are really well done.
I know a site where there's a historic house that might be vacating land. So. Right.
Some people not be found that house historic in the public forum. It's an old house.
Working group update item number 6.
The handle on the window was 1 of 5 feet.
Yeah.
Public relations?
Sure, we've got a lot of updates to provide. So we have been filling out the paperwork for Fun on the 4th, as you guys mentioned, and we'll be submitting that and hosting a table this year for informational purposes. We had originally thought that maybe the Yes for Wilmington Schools Committee would be the one to operate and host the table, but unfortunately the bylaws of the Fun on the Fourth prohibit that type of activity. So it will still be hosting the table, and we'll look to all of us here, since it will be the last large public gathering of the community before the vote, as well as our partners in crime here from Doran Whittier, SMMA, and Fontaine. We also have been working with the Yes Vote Committee to get them set up properly and providing them with the most latest and greatest information in order to set them for success. And I'm happy to report that as of yesterday, their Facebook page went live. So please do go on it and like the page and follow it, so that there'll be more and more, and share it with all of the people you're friends with. They have the Facebook page set up. They have a volunteer section set up as well for anybody that so wishes to volunteer, as well as a donation section on how you can go about making donations towards it. They have a wonderful group of individuals that are extremely passionate about this project. And we're very fortunate to be working alongside with them and bringing their expertise into how to campaign. So they have a multi-pronged marketing approach, as well as a multi-pronged avenue on how to get out to the vote, and even contemplating initial event dates and locations for free to come in, have the people just hear about the project and gather all those individuals that are interested. Beyond
Vivian, excuse me, Vivian, what is the name of the page and Facebook? What does it go by?
Yes, Yes for Wilmington Schools, and I can share, I'll send an email out after this evening with their Facebook page link to everybody here, so that you could go on and just quickly like and share. As well as, I know there's been conversations about, we've already done all of up to date, the water bills. The team is working on a additional insert, a new insert for the upcoming May water bill, as well as the working group, public relations working group, is working on putting together a factual one-page kind of talking points about the project information that is just accurate and just more, these are the facts and only the facts, and we'll share that with the Yes Committee as well as everybody else that would like that, in order to utilize that as talking points and getting the conversation started. And I don't think I'm missing anything, did I?
Can we get a copy of that before it goes in the water bills?
The water bill insert is not the one-page informational. The water bill insert is what we've been doing thus far. And I think Doran Whittier, SMMA, and if I am correct, Fontaine is working collaboratively with the town leadership group to establish that and have it go inserted into the water bill. It'll be more of a just, here is where we are about the project and what is moving forward, similarly to other ones that we've done with a QR code that takes you directly to the web page. The other one, the factual page, the talking points that we're working on, as soon as we do have a solid draft, and a lot of the information will come from the Q&A that we've received from abutters, from the community, as well as just questions that have been sent in. That definitely, Diane, we could share that as a draft form so that everybody could see it before we kind of share it with the larger audience.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. And as well as if anybody wants to make a donation to the Yes Committee, they have a link to do so. They're looking to start initially with yard signage and growing and expanding from there. That's really.
Can I just interrupt for a minute? I would like to see any copy that goes out in the water bill.
Sure. That one is the town as in conjunction Marianne, it's not the PR group that's putting that out.
That's fine. I'd still, whoever is in charge of it in the town, I'd like to see it too.
Sure, and I do believe I did fail to mention that Doran Whittier SMMA is also working to bring back Dave Cartoon from Cartoon EDU in order to do the next leg of the pillars to help facilitate the communication of where we are in the MSBA process. And that hopefully will be done, I think, what did we say, by the end of March?
No, that will be done,
sorry.
so, right around on the 4th.
Yeah.
On the board.
I think, Vivian, I think the group should have a copy of that, what's going in the water bills. I really do. If
Diane, I don't have it. We're not the public relations group for this upcoming water bill insert is not responsible for it for the first time, yay. But I'm sure that is something that we could accommodate.
well, who is responsible for it then?
So Diane, we're going to be putting the draft of it together, and I'm aware that it needs to be delivered no later than April 17th. Our plan is to have it in front of this committee by the 25th, so you'll have a chance to review it well ahead of time.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all we were asking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another quick question on putting the video together. Is there a cost for that?
We already had made allocations at the beginning of the project for funding for that Cartoon EDU. And so we'll just be utilizing the funds that have been remaining towards it.
Nick, you had a question?
I do not.
Oh,
I received.
all right, okay. Any other updates from working groups tonight?
No.
Okay, discussion, item number 7 is discussion correspondence, new items. And specifically school project naming for the outreach initiatives. We have this listed on the agenda. I'm well aware that it's 9 o'clock.
We still need it.
I have a suggestion, Dr. Brand.
Go ahead.
You know, the school that is there right now is the North Intermediate School, correct? So why, it makes sense to call this project North Elementary Project, North Elementary Project.
But then,
Well, I guess I will pose the question I was going to, and is this something that we can pass over and return to at the next meeting? Or is there a time sensitivity, do we feel, to this? Nick?
I propose we treat this as homework. We bring it back for the next meeting. We all think about what we want to name it, but come back ready to seriously discuss the name of the project.
Okay.
Can I argue, we were supposed to have sent homework into Eric.
And you did.
And I did. So we can vote on my option.
Yeah, that's the floor. How would you like to name this?
I mean, it's not naming the school. It's
No, I'm
naming
sure, yeah.
the project.
Project,
Yes,
yeah.
that's right.
We're just naming the project. We're not naming the
We
school.
want to make it a name. This is something that's very passionate to me, if you guys haven't already detected that. I would respectfully disagree in calling it North or Wildwood or any of the existing schools, because then it gives the same impression as a Wildwood project does. It makes it where it only focuses in on one subsection of the population to focus on the project. We want it to be an all-inclusive, because whatever we decide on this side of the school border will be dictated on what happens in the future schools of Wellington. So it really does need to be more of a holistic, generic name.
Okay, so I'm gonna suggest we move this item, I'm gonna move us to, I know we need to bring this meeting to a close. We'll add this, we'll talk about this leadership group to add this to the agenda for the March 25th meeting, which is the next meeting scheduled.
It's not a Wednesday, by the way. March 25th is a Tuesday. Do you realize that? According to my calendar, March 25th is Tuesday. March 26th is Wednesday.
But
It's Wednesday on the agenda.
Is it Wednesday, 26th?
Back says 31st.
Which is.
But if it does,
I have it as the 25th.
if Dr. Brown, it is moved to the following meeting, it needs to be item number 1 or 2.
Understood.
And
It is
not
it is Tuesday,
Tuesday.
March 25th, not Wednesday, but it is March 25th is the correct date. Any
It-
other?
And then it's Tuesday, is that when?
Tuesday, March 25th.
Yeah.
Any other discussion, correspondence, or new items that must be attended to this evening? Judy?
Just want to put it out there just for peace of mind regarding the water bill, because I do sense some unrest on this, that I will take responsibility for working through that with Doran Whittier and the team to make sure that it gets out to the committee and make sure that I handle it within town halls to get it to the treasurer's office, and also to make sure that we handle the billing with Shasheen such that no one is being asked to remit any payment separately. We'll take care of that. So I just want to put people's mind at ease. The other part too, and I think it needs to be said, is that we understand the PR group and the vote yes for the school is a very key integral part of this whole project. But it is separate and distinct from this body. And I think the reason why people are bringing up some questions is because they're not able to see and offer commentary and weigh in on what might get posted on a social media site. And we also know that there will be people that will potentially respond, and they want to make sure that people are acting in the image and likeness of how they would respond and keep their professionalism and how they respond to social media posts. So I'm sensing that that's part of why people are asking, is because their name is attached to the project, and they want to make sure that everything that goes out that may point back to them mirrors what their belief system is on the project. So I think we need to just be aware that this, obviously, we're doing this because we're supporting schools and wanting to bring education. But not.
Thank you, Judy, that's perfect,
Everybody
absolutely.
around this table has the same opinion, even about this project, but we've come to a new ground. And I just want to make sure that we keep the right perspective, and that, you know, people want to be very careful about what goes out, because if they're associated with it and they don't like what's presented, they're going to withdraw from their level of interest to want to serve on this committee or be part of future endeavors. And this is a time for us to all rise up together and make this project happen. And I just don't want to get any dissension amongst colleagues because of communication that could have had some ground rules set up front.
Great. And I thank you for that. That is excellent. And to understand that where there is a line of delineation between the PR working group as well as the yes vote committee, we are here to help support them and set them up for success, but we are not a member of the yes vote committee. Our information that we transmit to them is factual and just basic information about the project, and how they disseminate that and articulate it as well as repost it on Facebook is how they have deemed it to be appropriate. But I can assure you that meeting the individuals as well as listening to them and helping them set up, they have been a tremendous force, as well as highly capable individuals that have deep expertise in this area, that I'm confident that they'll treat it with the utmost respect.
But I agree, I agree with everything everybody said, and I want to just say very clearly, the intent of both the PR working group and the town is to make sure that if we're gonna put out a document, this group's gonna see it before we get it out, and that's what we're gonna do.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Committed to
absolutely.
that, and we're gonna make sure that that's the case, so I don't want folks to feel like
And I
we're not gonna blindside anybody.
should have said it earlier, but I was trying to not elongate the meeting, but I just don't want us to go from now to 3:25 and not have people walking out of here with some assurances that we're gonna monitor this.
Thank you, Judy. I have one new item, and that's just to bring to everyone's attention. Many of you are aware, but the town clerk sent out a reminder today regarding Governor Healy, and we are coming up to the end of this month, March 31st, in which it's the temporary extension of the provisions pertaining to open meeting law and public participation that can also be done, or participation of committee members that can be done remotely. This is expiring in March at the end of this month. And so unless there's an extension granted, that would mean that going forward, our meetings and everyone participating would have to be in person. Somebody reminded me that I guess it was a day or two, last time around that the governor extended this. So perhaps that happens again, but just to sort of put that out there as an item to watch and to be aware of.
You want me to call her?
Would you?
Yes.
That would be wonderful. I certainly hope it, for lots of reasons, hope it does get extended. I think participation in lots of ways has been certainly enhanced with this. Committee questions is item number 8. Any questions?
Yes, Dr. Brand.
Yes.
Okay, I would like to ask for our next committee meeting, I would like to request that we have an agenda item to discuss reorganization of the committee's chairman. If you could put that on the agenda for the next committee meeting.
Sure, will do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it will do. And just for some context, I know the question is coming, well, it's my belief the question's coming with my forthcoming departure from the district at the end of June. As I have certainly made mention of on a few occasions to both the town manager as well as the school committee, I don't think that it's a position that would be at all appropriate for what will be an interim superintendent for lots of different reasons. I was happy to take this on, but I just don't think that it's appropriate. So to that end, there certainly will need to be consideration of that. This committee would, as they did when the inception of this committee voted on on my capacity as the chair, service as the chair. There have been some conversations that have started around what that might look like. Eric and I have had those conversations. So thank you, Diane. We can add that to the agenda.
We're planning to put it on the agenda next meeting, so.
Okay. Public comment is item number 9. There's no one here in person tonight. Anyone remotely?
No.
Okay. Next meeting is Tuesday, March 25th. Also, though, to bring to your attention in the packet that there will be an agenda item regarding the upcoming meetings for the school building committee. They were included in the packet at the end. And so I'll draw your attention to those. There are a number of meetings that are going to be upcoming, and we will solidify approval of those at the next meeting.
Sarah will send that revised to make correct the 25th date for March to Tracy, and she will send it all to you tomorrow.
So even
point of clarification on the back, it does list Monday the 31st of March as well as a committee meeting, or we mean both?
That's the community forum.
That's a
But
community.
it has both.
No, there's
Oh, it
also
does, both.
meeting.
So are we meeting both weeks? I just want to make
I
sure.
think that when we put this together, we tweaked a little bit, so we will correct this and send this up tomorrow. But we are meeting both days, yes, 25th and the 31st.
And will we get calendar invites on this so that we get it into our calendar so that each one and turn it?
Yeah.
As soon as we approve it, we will get calendar invites.
all of that said,
Excuse me, Dr. Brand, just to clarify, so we are going to meet on Tuesday, the 25th and Monday, the 31st?
Monday the 31st, yes.
Okay, why are the meetings so close?
Monday the 31st, we need to approve our.
So on March 25th, we'll be coming back to you with the cost estimates. For, after we've gone through the reconciliation process to share what the numbers are with the committee. And then, as Julie mentioned earlier, there's a project scope and budget document that needs to be submitted to the MSBA. And so once the cost estimate is reconciled, then that project scope and budget form is developed, and then it has to be approved by this committee so that it can be submitted to the MSBA. So because of that, we require 2 meetings to complete that process.
But
We can't combine them into one. We cannot combine them into one meeting.
No, because once we get the approved reconciled cost, it'll take me probably about a week to put it together into the form that the MSBA has.
So Diane, but I guess to add some context, the March 31st meeting is very quick. It's the only agenda item would be the approval of the submission package to the MSBA. So it shouldn't take more than, I think roll call will take longer than the actual meeting.
And we have a community forum that night. So if everyone attends the community forum and then we roll into that meeting.
What's the location of the community forum?
This room right here.
Yes, Monday, March 31st is the community forum. That is Monday, March 31st.
And it is in-person community forum.
Thank you for all of your time this evening. A lot of discussion, a lot of great conversation. I appreciate, as always, your support, hanging in there, looking for motion to. Second, duly noted, Sharon Hall here.
Diane Allen,
Yes.
Greg Bendel,
Yes.
Kate Bissell,
Yes.
Dr. Brand,
Yes.
Kevin Kyra,
Yes.
Michael Comosio,
Yes.
Justin Couche,
Yes.
Mary Ann Galezzo,
Yes.
Nicholas Golden,
Yes.
Christine Holleran,
Yes.
John Holloway, Dennis Kelly,
Yes.
Paul Millerani,
Yes.
Craig Minor, Christine Murray. Yes. Judy O'Connell,
Yes.
Christine Pendergast. Christine, yes. David Ragsdale,
Yes.
Paul Ruggiero,
Yes.
Stacy Scott,
Yes.
Eric Schlegel,
Yes.
Stephen Turner,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.